Okay, there it goes. And this is live now. I don't think anybody's in the actual chat or anything like that. Sorry for the delay. If anybody was, who am I kidding? Nobody's watching this. But I'm going to express my thoughts anyway. So I'm going to close out a couple of things here. I just need to get something on the air. It's like, it's already 8:20. But bear with me while I forward some emails. So the reason for the delay is my brother's wedding is in May, and I needed to book a flight, but I wasn't able to do that on my own, so I needed to consult with my aunt as far as payment and flight times and trying to figure out the best deal and all that sort of thing. So wait, that's the wrong option. I'm going to forward these, not reply. Okay, but we'll be getting along the actual discussion shortly here. Which one did I just send? Okay. All right, and hopefully the stream is coming through just fine. All right. So, what I wanted to talk about this evening, a couple of things in the news. Let's start with the less important ones and kind of work our way towards the more important ones. And then, so let's just start with the, well, this wasn't in the description, but this is something that happened this week, was the Bernie Sanders showed up on Fox. I forget which program. It wasn't Fox and Friends, I don't think. I don't remember which program on Fox because I don't watch Fox regularly, but video clips have been around the internet. Bernie Sanders was on some Fox TV show, and the host was asking him, so Bernie Sanders is a millionaire. He is in the 1%. They were asking him about his tax policy and how he's talked about charging the rich their fair share, which means more than what we're currently taxing them at. And they asked Bernie Sanders if he would pay more than, if he would, since he's a multimillionaire, he would qualify in that, and would he charge himself the same rate that he's asking for other 1%ers to pay. And Bernie Sanders replied that he pays the amount that he owes in taxes. That was his response was, oh, I pay what I owe in taxes. And they said, but you could pay more. You can voluntarily pay more than you owe to the IRS, and thus to the government. The IRS, and I'm filing for taxes and all of that, and the reason you get a refund is they say you owe X amount of dollars, and you pay X amount of dollars. If you had more siphoned from your wages throughout the year than you owe them at the end of the year, you get the difference because you paid more than you ended up owing, and so then you get money back. And this is the other thing about the taxes that everybody, I'm going to piggyback off of this and go on a side tangent, is a lot of mainstream media have been reporting about the tax situation. Oh, people are getting less back in their tax return, less back in their tax return. Like, yes. And this is something Mark Dyson, Donald J. Trump, and a bunch of other people are commenting on. It's like, that's because they took less out up front. You had more money in every paycheck. And at the end of the year, you still didn't owe. You got money back because you still overpaid. You still overpaid in taxes. Getting money back is a good thing, yes, because it means your tax burden, according to the IRS and according to the law, is less. But it's ideally you would pay no more than you owe. like, it would be terrible if you, at the end of the year, you file for taxes and it turns out, oh, you didn't pay enough and the IRS says you owe more, and now you got to come up with money to give to the IRS at the end of the year. Granted, this is all ignoring the debate about taxes being immoral and all that sort of thing. Yes, taxation is theft and all that. That's a whole separate issue. This is just because, A, you don't want to end up in jail. You don't want to end up like Peter Schiff's father, Erwin Schiff, and spend 20 plus years in jail for for not paying taxes and telling other people that they don't have to pay their taxes, completely within the letter of the law, showing people how they could, because taxes were supposed to be voluntary, and on the actual forms themselves. Anyway, that's the whole separate issue about the morality of this. Is just saying, hey, if you don't want to go to jail, you don't going to get fined or audited by the IRS, you don't want to be Wesley Snipes, the IRS says you owe X amount of dollars based on your income. Now, you prepay your taxes from your employer. Your employee estimates how much you'll owe at the end of the year, and then they take out a percentage of each paycheck and give it to the IRS. And then when you file your taxes, the IRS says, you takes out all your deductions and everything you're getting back, and determines whether the taxes taken out of your paychecks was enough to cover your bill with the IRS. I don't think there's a better way of phrasing that, although bill is not quite the right word, but yeah, whatever. Bill, might as well bill me, IRS. So most people who have a employer, the employer takes more and gives it to the IRS than is required by your actual tax burden. That's because they don't want you to, at the end of the year, have to pay taxes and, oh, they didn't pay enough, and so now you got to come up with extra money at the end of the year. There's also, they can't figure out how many total deductions you're going to have throughout the year based on, various factors, and how much you gave to your retirement account, how many capital gains you actually have. Like if you got income from selling stocks or selling, well, gold is apparently considered capital gains for some idiotic reason. Anyway, all of that tax burden. The goal is to pay the fewest amount of taxes as possible, but also to pay it as close to that rate beforehand, so that way that money, because if you overpaid your taxes by, like, for me, my tax return this year was actually pretty abysmal, 400. That's not ideal. I'd rather have that number be, the ideal tax number is 0, because that 400 something dollars, I think it's 480 by the end of it, when it was all said and done after the fees and all that sort of thing, it ended up being about around 480. That means I overpaid by 480. That 480 could have done me a lot of good months earlier. I've had situations where I've been kind of under stress considering finance, like, because when I was going through this training program, I was earning $8 an hour, and they were also taking money out of my paycheck to pay for my rent. So when I was getting these paychecks while I was in training, pretty abysmal. I could have used an extra $400 during that time, so that way I wasn't, yeah. That was a rough 3 months. Well, yeah, it's been a rough 4 months at that $8 an hour, because I couldn't do anything to earn any extra money on top of that. Like previously, I was doing things like driving around in Uber. I would, selling stuff online. I was had this look at this other thing. Oh man, I'm going on tangent after tangent. I really need somebody else on these streams to bounce ideas off to keep me on the rails. But anyway, I have multiple ways of getting extra income when I was in St. Louis. But then when I got this job and had to go into training, all I had was the training paid during that time. The rest of my other income streams, I couldn't do when I was doing this. So I was stuck with $8 an hour, which is not a whole lot when you're getting your paycheck and it's like, oh, my paycheck is $300, and that's gonna last me 2 weeks, including, and that's got to cover phone bills every month. That's got to cover credit card payments and things along those lines. And by the end of the day, you're like, okay, I've got $20 to make it through 2 weeks. Yeah, it was. It wasn't quite $20, but it was pretty close to that a lot of the time. Where I was like, okay, I only got this is my last $5. Got to make it through 5 days on this. Okay. There was a couple of times where it was like that. It's pretty, yeah, not very fun to be in that situation. I could have used an extra $400 in my accounts to cover that buffer zone. Yeah, I can't. No, I'm not. I was never on that last $5. It had to last me 5 days because I mean, I did have spending cash. I went and saw. I was able to go see not one but two movies during this time. But oh yeah, that's I've got to be. I got to go in and unmute you. Sorry about that. I didn't realize you joined. Although now I'm not sure how I change that. It's something in the control room, I think. There we go. Nope. Huh. Why is it not letting me unmute you? Are you changing settings on yours, or? Yeah, so it's a setting I put in there to because since this is a live stream and I've kind of posted this out there on Twitter, the link to this hangout because I wasn't sure who would show up. Put the setting that anybody who joins, their mic starts off muted, but I am not sure. It's not letting me unmute you. So do I need to change that setting? Or is that something on your end where your mic is not hooked up correctly? Yeah, I'm not sure if that's from my end or your end. Can you test your mic using other some other like? Okay, so the mic is responding. It's got to be something on my end. No, I hope I don't have to restart the stream based on that. Well, maybe quit and then re-enter. I've changed those settings, so yeah, see if you can rejoin. I really don't like that. I would rather have everything set up on OBS. I'm getting that working. I do have my desktop all set up and running. I started up the other day. Everything's good to go as far as that. However, since it's been in storage for a while, my desktop is covered in like a layer of dust. So I was like, yeah, even though I had started it up and I'd run it and everything is working good, you could definitely hear it was struggling. So I powered it off almost immediately, and I'm waiting on spray dusters because there was no cans of dusters in my whatever. I ordered some online, so I'm going to spray out the computer and get rid of all that dust so that way the fan can actually do its job and it's not going to crash on me. Yeah, with that desktop, the settings on running everything is much better. But for now, I'm just using Google's Hangout and all their stuff, which means the controls on what I can and can't do in the Hangout apparently suck.
Yeah, looks like my mic's working now, so
yeah.
Must be.
I think it might have been the setting I had put on the Hangout. When I'm doing OBS, I can actually mute people in OBS, not directly, or well, I guess that's not quite true because it would mute the entire Hangout stream or whatever. There's more options in OBS as far as limiting what people can and can't say. So what I was trying to, in case somebody joins in randomly and I don't know them, because I did put this link out on my Twitter because, you know, trying to build this channel up.
Yeah, I think you can still mute individual.
Yeah, but I didn't want anybody coming on here and just immediately spouting the N-word and all that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You got a point.
So I was like, okay, if they show up and I'm like, wait, who is this person? Give them a chance to respond, and then I could unmute them. But for some reason, it wouldn't let me unmute you.
Okay. Right now, your next answer better be a good one.
Okay, so I was talking about taxes, and Bernie, yeah, went on this huge tangent. Sorry. Talking about taxes. The goal is to pay the least amount of taxes as possible. The media has been spinning this narrative as, oh, see, you really didn't get any tax cuts because look, your tax returns are lower. And I'm like, they took less out up front, you idiots.
The company I work for has been phenomenal when it comes to taxes. I claim a 1 because I don't have any dependents I'm able to claim. And for the last 5 years, 0, both state and federal. They have been right on top of it. This year, I'm getting over $200 back. That hasn't ever happened, and I didn't change anything on my W-2s. It's just because they changed and I'm in a higher tax bracket. I went up this year, and I get money back. So, yeah, there's definitely money coming back. I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Yeah, they were talking about tax returns being lower, 8% lower than they were the previous year. And they're like, they're lying to people because people saw it in their paychecks, how they were getting more money per paycheck and still got a tax return. That's more overall money. It's just given to you in a different way. It's not in the lump sum at the end of the year. Anyway, I was just making the claim. Yeah,
there was a lump sum. Yeah, I usually get nothing.
Yeah,
1 year I had to pay in 5 cents or something.
Yeah, so that would be
spot on. But this year I'm actually getting something back, which that's not normal.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you should have also seen more money in your paychecks because, well, you said you were in a higher tax bracket, but so maybe that.
It's still, I'm, as far as month to month, it's still fairly the same coming in because I think I was at the top of the lower middle income and now I'm at the bottom of the regular middle income. So as far as take home, that's still pretty much the same, but I do get a slight return, and so probably this next year they're going to reconfigure to where I actually do get a little more take home.
Yeah,
because I think that tax break happened like midway through the year.
Yeah, when a lot of people are reporting, like, oh, the tax break and all that sort of thing, they didn't get the amazing tax returns, but they were still getting an extra $1,000 to $2,000 per year. And they're like, yeah, based on how much extra I've been getting in my paycheck. And also getting a tax return, that means I had an extra 1,000 or 2,000 compared to this time last year. And I was like, yeah, that's
basically they're just taking the statistics and skewing them severely.
Yes, skewing them to make it look like, oh, see, he promised a tax return. This is only benefiting the rich.
Back, it's what you actually got to keep for the entire year.
Yes,
before you paid in and after the tax return comes in, what is your overall take?
Yeah, and it was lower for a lot of people.
Majority of people.
Majority of people, and people like they keep trying to spread it. And so this is something Bernie Sanders is like, oh yeah, the 1% are seeing their tax breaks and all that sort of thing. Because that's what I originally was talking about. Is Bernie Sanders was on a Fox News program and they were asking him questions about, oh, you're a millionaire, you're part of the 1%. You've advocated for taxing the 1% to make them pay their fair share. Would you? And he said, yeah, so I don't know if you saw these video clips.
Technically, old man socialism is the 1%er.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the 1% that he keeps bragging on and all that sort of thing. And that's why they called him out on it. And we're like, well, would you pay more
in 3 taxes, man? Yeah. Why don't you sell 2 and donate that all to charity?
Yeah. So his response was, I pay what I owe. And they're like, that's not the question.
That's the exact same response as anybody else that's in that 1%.
Yep.
Pay what they owe. That's the same thing Donald Trump would say. I pay what I owe.
Yeah.
In fact, that is
yeah. And so then they asked him, was like, well, you're asking the 1%, you're talking about tax rates of 50 and 70%, but you don't pay 50 and 70% in taxes.
No,
that's what you're that's what you're advocating for, and you You don't currently do it. You have the option to currently do it, and you don't.
I believe we're just seeing that facade of, if the government would up their tax rate, then I would have to pay. Therefore, I would be, and it would be willing. But since they don't, I don't.
Well,
if he was actually wanting to be charitable and
yeah, he would just do it.
Look into the socialist mindset, he would pay his whatever taxes are owed, but he would take any extra money he's got and have donated to multiple charities and basically given everything he's got.
But
he's more worried about the impoverished.
Yeah. But the tax returns that people do have access to for Bernie Sanders last year, less than $10,000 in charity. Yeah. Made multiple millions that year, less than $10,000 in charity. There are people who make six figures a year.
Trump's organization gives multiple millions of dollars. Yeah. Bill Gates, one of the richest guys in the world, multiple millions of dollars yearly.
Yeah.
Annually.
And yeah, there are people who earn less than six figures or around six figures who do more charity than Bernie Sanders did. And he's earning seven figures. What? So, yeah, the situation looked bad on him because the person he was talking to is a Fox TV personality, and so she's a multimillionaire, and he asked her, well, would you pay more? And she's like, no, but then again, I'm not running for president. And the other guy is like, yeah, and she's not telling other people that they should be paying more in taxes. You are the one running for president and telling people they should pay more in taxes. Shouldn't you lead by example? Or it's silly.
Same excuse as AOC or Alexandria. She has used the exact same tactic. She lives in a lofty, I don't know how much that condo costs that she's living in now. It's expensive. But the average income in her area is over six figures for everybody.
Yeah.
She still takes planes. She still drives around in Ubers, taxis, SUVs, whatever. She doesn't take the subway. She doesn't take trains. But she says she's not going to until everybody else starts going to, and that's what she's pushing for.
These people do not understand leading by example. It's, rules for thee, but not for me. That's okay, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about, so talking about Democrats and their insanity, I don't know if you kept up with the Ilhan Omar stuff that's been some people did something comment. Oh,
that's ignorant. I mean, that was a terrorist attack on U.S. soil, wiping out. I mean, as far as mass killings go, forget all the other gun shootings.
Yeah,
all combined, they don't add up to that.
Well, that's the thing. Is anytime they talk about terrorist attacks in the United States,
she won't even call them terrorists, which is why she said something by some people.
Yeah,
because she agrees with them.
Yeah, but if you look when they give statistics, they say after 9/11 there have been more terrorist acts or terrorist incidents from white people and from white Americans than there have been from Islamic terrorists. And you're like, so if you ignore the biggest one where 3,000 people or over 3,000 people lost their lives in a single day in a single attack, then white people have more incidents of terrorism. Well, if you ignore the biggest one in history,
that their mass shooting stats are askew because they keep dropping the number.
Oh,
I mean, they have to keep enlarging the number because mass shootings used to be what, 3 or more people than 4 or more, and that's still
now it's
in urban areas, black community, like lower impoverished black communities. Those are all considered mass shootings, and they way outnumber the ones we see on TV, the Vegas shooting or the Parkland school shooting, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, those are all of these are tragic. It's all bad news. I don't understand why people want to do that one way or the other. But you got a few kooky white people that nobody's behind them. Nobody's patting them on the back and saying, good job, you white supremacists. Nobody. You know, that shooting at the 2 mosques out in New Zealand. Nobody's behind that guy and saying, hey, I agree with him.
Yeah.
Guy's a nut job. But these are kind of few and far between. We've got day-to-day shootings that are considered mass shootings. Someone robs a liquor store and shoots 2 or 3 people. And those actually add up more than what we see with these extreme white supremacist guys.
Yeah.
But all of that combined still doesn't equal that one terrorist attack.
Yeah. That all of it combined is less than 9/11. The deaths on 9/11. Yeah.
But yeah, demoting that to
here's
by some people.
Yeah, here's the other thing, and this is something Matt Christensen pointed out, and I was like, wow, that's actually a really good point, and I hadn't heard this anywhere else, because they were talking about incidents like this have been reported that white Americans commit terrorist or terrorist incidents at a rate of twice as much as Islamic terrorist incidents. Well, that was the official report, and he talked about, yeah, the numbers are skewed because there's attacks that are clearly Islamist in nature that are not reported in this. There are attacks that had no political leaning whatsoever, so you can't tell what their motivation, whether these were motivated by terrorism or no motivation whatsoever. So how are you putting them in the white non-Muslim category when we don't know the motives of them? So there's incidents like that. But he said, okay, the ratio is 2 to 1. Percentage of the population that is white in the United States, 37%. Percentage of Muslim population in the United States, 1 to 2%.
Wait, white population? I thought white do they mean just white males?
White males. Yeah, the white population overall is like 60-something%. But white males. The number of white female incidents is so small, it's not even a blip on the radar. But yeah, 37% white males versus other categories, and you're like, yeah, you're talking about 37% of the country versus 1%. And they have half. 1% does half of 37%. That is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's worse than the statistic on black homicide.
Yeah.
15% causing 50% of homicides.
Yeah.
That's a horrible statistic in and of itself, but
yeah, 1% causing 1/3 of all terrorist incidents. Okay.
I was kind of chuckling at I was watching some I can't remember who it was, but they were on the topic of Ilhan Omar. Mm-hmm. One of her campaign issues is, I think, with the Wisconsin Bodybuilding or Pro Association, because trans women are trying to compete with other women, and they said, no, we're not going to allow that. There's obviously you're stronger. You physically have the strength of a man. That's not fair. And so she's saying that they are
discriminating
harm and attacking one of the most persecuted groups. But I was thinking, so if men and women are just in between, wouldn't that make women just as much a serial killer or a mass?
Oh, that's an excellent point.
And therefore, those statistics about men doing it don't matter. Women are just as capable of mass.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. I haven't heard anybody make ever.
As rapist as men, then.
If men and women are completely the same biologically and physiologically and all of that sort of thing, and are interchangeable, why do we see a much higher rate of crime and violent incidents with men compared to women? I don't think I've ever heard anybody bring up that. Like, it's something everybody knows. It's something that's like obvious from crime reports, obvious from arrest records. Women as a whole, less crime than men, and less incidents than men.
Physically are not able to be the aggressor in those circumstances, so they can't.
Yeah,
that's been in history. Wars weren't started by women ever. I mean, maybe behind the scenes talking to guys, but as far as actually fighting, it's not women.
Yeah, so the whole notion is, there's no biological difference between males and females, and there's no difference in the male brain and the female brain. I'm like, then how does that explain crime statistics? That's awesome, dude.
I mean, first, it's because I think adrenaline does make men more aggressive, and it takes a
not adrenaline, testosterone.
Yeah, testosterone makes men more aggressive naturally. It's just it's kind of a necessity. If you look back at the dawn of civilization, they had to be aggressive. They had to claim their territory. They had to hunt. They had to get their food. They had to dominate the creatures around them, or they would have died. Somebody had to. So the men got the testosterone and were aggressive. But as society's increased, it takes kind of an older father figure who has learned to hone that aggression and use it where it's needed and stop it where it's not. And we're losing that, which is why that aggression is starting to run rampant.
So the way it was, I've heard people talking about it, is like testosterone does not mean aggression as in physical aggression and violence. Testosterone is what motivates or pushes you to overcome competition. But when your competition is either non-existent or there's nothing to compete in or an unfair competitive environment, instead that testosterone is redirected to lash out violently and physically. Usually that's what testosterone is, what motivates a guy to get up and go to work to support his family and, or that the protecting and all that sort of thing. But if there is no one to protect, if there is no one to provide for, if there's no one,
they sit at home and do nothing, then you get
violent outbursts and physical aggression because there's no positive way to focus that natural aggression.
Yeah, I mean, there have been men's training or fighting groups all throughout history. If you're a man, you are part of the military. You do some kind of training. The wrestling competitions in Greece were all started by men because they needed something to do.
Yeah.
It was a way to show their prowess while also expelling that need to conquer something. So, I mean, it's there, but if women want to be equal and all the good stuff, they're going to have to say, hey, we've got that bad side as well, which they obviously don't. But, so that's what I was listening to Ilhan Omar about that. That's
for some reason,
because I'm pretty sure she would like all the trans people dead since that's her religion.
So the other thing, so this is something that has been circulating around for a while. Ilhan Omar married her brother. That hasn't been officially. That's a side tangent. Remember, there's one more thing I need to talk about when it comes to the some people did something comment.
Okay.
So before I forget, while going down this tangent, so it has been confirmed that it wasn't just marrying her brother, because that's what they were talking about originally, was she married her brother, and then some people were like, oh, that was probably just to get him in the U.S., or it was to get her in the U.S., or vice versa, something along those lines.
No, he's the dad.
He's the father of her kids. And it is her biological brother. This is not a stepbrother situation. No, biological brother. He is the father of her kids.
And
they are divorced. What? Yeah.
In public.
Yeah.
Uncle Dad.
And she has been burying this, and anybody who brings up this sort of claim, like with her, somebody did something claim. Anytime anybody criticizes this about her or anything that she says or does, she's like, oh, well, this is violence against me, and you know how many death threats I get, and I'm like,
well, that's the thing. Trump retweeted her video and basically just said, we will never forget. And it was just her talking.
And it was her talking, and it was spliced in with footage of the actual incident.
So then how is her talking about that incident harmful? Which means she should have not said that if she's now fearing for her life or getting death threats.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Nobody else chopped it up and said, hey, we're going to put in someone else's voice or overlay it with a different. It was just, it was all in context.
It was what she was saying. And he was like, this is what you're describing as some people did something. This horrific event.
It's because she will not call them terrorists. She is on their side, on their beliefs.
Yeah. And it's always this deflection is like, she can criticize Trump, and that's fine. She can criticize Republicans. She can criticize anybody, and she's criticizing what they're saying and doing, although most of the time it's incorrect. But any criticism labeled against them, and this is not just Ilhan Omar, this is also AOC and Pelosi and Warren and all these people, these crazy out of their minds leftists. Any criticism of what they have actually done is a criticism against women, or is a criticism against, people of color, or is a criticism against Islam. And you're like, no, it's you, what you are precisely saying. It's never the group. It's never, oh, that's violence against, you're causing violence and you're trying to cause this division between groups of people. No, it's you calling you on your BS.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So along the same subject, Trump tweeted out that his staff is now trying to come up with a proposition to take all the asylum seekers and put them in the sanctuary cities,
and they're saying
like,
that's my
that's horrible. Why would you dump all this on us?
Yeah, and they're all like, "Oh, this is
despicable,
so evil and mean," and
it's using these immigrants.
Like, dude, that is brilliant.
That's what a sanctuary city was for.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Like, oh, you want to have a sanctuary city? Okay, we'll deport all the people to those sanctuary cities. No, we don't want them here.
It's Trump's 4D chess at play.
Dude, yeah, it's a brilliant move, and it's calling them out on their BS because they're like, oh, we want to support illegals, we want to keep illegals, and then what is it? Cher tweeted out about this, saying, no, we can't even take care of our own people. Why would we take care of these asylum seekers? And he's like, exactly the freaking point.
That's where that palm on forehead, because that's what we've been screaming for years.
And it's fine when it's, oh yeah, those people over there, you can take care of them as long, hey, let them all in as long as somebody else takes care of them, as long as there's somebody else's problem. Oh wait, my problem? No, not in my backyard.
No. I can't take care of. Yeah, they can't stay here. I don't have room for that.
Yeah,
that's gonna be devastating. Yeah.
Well, that's what we've been saying. Anyway, okay. So the other thing about the "some people did something" statement from Ilhan Omar, she said that CARE was founded after 9/11 because some people did something. That's the full. And you're like, CARE was CARE was started in 1994. I'm like, what?
It was known before 9/11 ever happened. It's just a front for Hamas. Like it's known. I just don't have enough information to take them down, but there are several ties to Hamas, and that's way before 9/11.
Yeah, way before 9/11. It wasn't started because of 9/11. So her entire statement was absolutely incorrect. She completely downplayed the horrific event of 9/11. And then Dan Crenshaw and a couple others are saying, wow, that is, all he did was say, wow, I can't believe a sitting congressperson just said this about 9/11, just described it as some people that doing something. And they're like, oh, how dare you attack me? You're causing death threats against my life. You're causing violence. Yeah.
What we need to watch out for is the Democrats are coming across as just Looney Tunes living in clown land. I mean, just.
Yeah, dude, that's the whole clown world meme that's going around right now.
Oh, yeah. So that's side topic. I got something funny on that. But anyways, they're actually being a bit wily, which I don't think is getting caught on. This is a domino effect. If you look at Ilhan Omar's constituency, her district, it is primarily Muslim Somali immigrants. But they have not integrated into society. They have not taken part in the American dream, the belief system. In fact, they're actually anti-American. They came here for the money and because it's an easier life, but they'd like to see it all tore down and for them to take charge. They are using our own system, swarming into a community, taking over that district. And then, of course, she's a shoo-in. But if she tried to run anywhere else in this country, it would have failed flat on her face.
Yeah, not only is she this anti-American Islamic kind of extremist who wants Sharia law, not based on what she's saying in public, but what she's said when she thinks she's kind of in a safer environment and that sort of thing. Or sorry, maybe not. She says, "Oh, I love America" and all that sort of. Yeah, she can say that all she wants, but when she's talking about things that are actually counterproductive to America, she speaks of them highly. Like she's proud of them and that sort of thing. So it's not only that, but she's also a complete moron when it comes to what she's voted on and what she's proposed. Like, she was one of 2 dissenting voices on that bill that was, what was it? For life insurance for terrorist incidents. It was if you get killed because you're involved in a terrorist incident, you don't get a life insurance payout. Your family gets nothing. That was voted on by Congress. She was one of 2 people who voted no on that. right? It was saying, oh, this is a legal loophole where if you are a terrorist and you have a life insurance policy, you kill people and you have this massive, this mass killing spree or something like that, and you die, technically the insurance company has to pay out. Yeah, we should make that's illegal. Okay, if you are a terrorist and you die,
yeah,
the insurance company owes nothing. Okay,
this is the
that's what they voted on. That,
if you've got family or dependents, and you go out
yeah.
and decide to take on this terrorist attack, your family is screwed.
Yeah, yeah, that's you get nothing. The insurance company owes you absolutely nothing, and that got passed. She was one of two dissenting opinions on that. The other dissenting opinion was some guy who thought there was something else in there, and after looking at it, it's like, oh, that was a different bill. He thought that they had tacked on something that he disapproved of it.
Well, that's fantastic. It's a good thing he's reading.
Yeah. So after coming to the realization, oh, that amendment wasn't actually included in the final bill. Oh, well, then I would have voted yes.
Yeah. But I mean,
okay. I think she didn't change her. Yeah, she didn't change her stance whatsoever. She's like, oh, nope, this is something that we should have. What?
They're going to use our system and slowly weed us out, which is why the immigration thing is such a big topic. They want to get the white population, or I would call it the American population, because there are plenty of Hispanics and blacks that I consider just they're Americans, they're normal people.
Yeah, that's why
that open-minded, free-thinking population, get a bunch of immigrants in that believe the exact same religious, anti-American beliefs, to where they can take over districts and start dictating our laws.
Yeah.
Even for being 1% of the population, they've got a major voice, which is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't want to trample on a 1%, but I'm not going to let them push around the other 99%.
Well, also 1% of what 320 million is still 3.2 million. It's not an insignificant number.
But I mean, we're already getting a third of that every year south of the border.
Yeah.
Expecting them, what, 1 million illegal immigrants pouring in from south of the border. Yep. And now they're actually calling that a crisis, even though just a few weeks ago, what's his name, stupid Acosta was standing next to that fence. No crisis.
No problem here. Like, well, that's because there's a fence there, you idiot.
2 months later, there's a crisis.
Oh, dude, they are so slow on the uptake. So the other thing before because I do want to get back to Clown World, because you had something to say there. But the other thing about Ilhan Omar is another video clip that's been circulating around. And it's her talking about, I don't remember, she was talking about some kind of news clip or something like that, where somebody's saying Hamas and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and he's putting an emphasis on these terms as if they're bad. And she's like, yeah, that's like, well, when you hear somebody say the U.S., you don't hear, oh, the U.S., or you don't hear somebody say China, and she's like, you're talking about terrorist groups, you idiot. She's saying, oh, look at this is unfair. Look at how they try to badmouth these organizations like Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS. This is as she was a sitting member of Congress, and she was on some kind of program talking about this.
But what you do hear is people say that about Charles Manson.
Yeah, it's Manson or Dahmer. Yeah. These are names spoken with infamy, right? Not with high regard. Just whatever, the U.S. or Paris or France, China.
Killers are killers. And society.
And terrorist groups, you say, that was ISIS. If you put an emphasis on it, it's because, there is a loathing inherent in the name.
Yeah, no one's saying Hamas and ISIS. But hey, that Vegas shooter, he's kind of cool. Nobody's saying that.
No, it's always
vote with them.
They turn that a-hole. So she I don't know, how is there not a movement right now to not just kick her out of Congress, but to kick her out of the country? Like, there's so much anti-American and actually traitorous behavior just from her talking in interviews and stuff like that. It's like, at what point do we not just boot her ass? That's like, why is that not a huge thing with Congress? It's like, she's not.
That is, if she hasn't necessarily done anything that we would consider illegal or something that they can be removed from Congress yet. We can't set a precedent just because they were born, you know, foreign and they come in and are nationalized. We kick them out if we don't like what they're saying, because that can backfire, just like all the Democrats' attempt at censoring have backfired. What we need to do is stop her and have Congress stop her at any of her propositions. And anytime she says something stupid, continue to call it out and say this is anti-American. And the next time, she won't get elected.
She still will, because her district is, Same thing with Ocasio-Cortez. And so this is another thing that was going around, is where
she has no power until she gets more clout behind her and more people start to say the same thing to Congress.
Yeah, even Pelosi admitted this. She was talking about her own district, and she was talking about AOC's district, and she was like, yeah, if the glass of water ran with a D next to its name, they would get elected in those districts.
Yeah.
Now, and for some reason, okay, this is where I got to criticize people on the right, and somebody from the Daily Wire, Ryan something, I forget his name, was sent a clip of this video, and his response is, oh, here's Pelosi bad-mouthing AOC, and I'm like, Pelosi just talked about her own district, AOC's, and other other Democrats, and how their districts were so staunchly Democrat that anybody could have won as long as they have a D next to their name. How is that an attack against AOC?
Democrats, which is what happened with AOC. She was battling another Democrat, Republican,
but
not to be found.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people criticizing and say, oh, look, Pelosi is bad-mouthing AOC. And I'm like, did you watch the clip? She's not bad-mouthing AOC. She's pointing out exactly the issue. Some areas are so stuck in Democrat that it doesn't matter. They can have she said a glass of water, but I would also say, somebody, O.J. Simpson could run for a Democrat in those districts and get elected.
They could crap in a bag and put that up with a big D next to it.
Somebody who is like Zodiac killer. Well, actually, I don't think they actually had the name of Zodiac, but probably somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, oh, hey, Jeffrey Dahmer, Democrat. All right, check that Democrat box.
Democrat, good guy.
He's got my vote. Yeah, that's those districts. And so she was saying glass water would be kind of neutral, but I'm like, even somebody horrible and despicable could probably get elected in those districts as long as they got a D next to their name. But so that's not something specific to AOC or criticism of her, but
no, that should be a criticism of Democrats.
Of Democrats, and
a criticism of Republicans who just stopped trying.
Yeah, because like in AOC's district, the other guy she was running against put about $2 million in. She put $2 million. The Republican, 10,000, or maybe it was 20,000. Not even close. Not even.
Yeah,
that was
they don't bother.
The Democrat she was running against was just for the primaries. Once she got the nomination,
even in that district, voter turnout was what, 21%? No, like 15 to 21%. Right?
Oh yeah, it was really small.
A fifth of the entire voting population. If that Republican actually put some money into it, went door to door and say, "Look, just vote." That's it.
And he could have if he all he had to do is show clips of Ocasio-Cortez, and it's like, this is the person I'm running against.
Because even if it's
30 seconds of her talking, vote. Right? Do I have your vote? Everybody like, you definitely have my vote. What a moron.
I mean, even if it's 80% that's Democrat and only 20 that's Republican, he just needs that 20% to show up.
Yeah,
and he got it.
Yeah, he could have easily just had his campaign be like, it's between me and her. This is her.
Because it's a long shot, and where's he going to get financing from when only 20% of the population is Republican? So I understand the financing part, but I mean, it's not impossible.
Yeah, it's just they gave up.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking. You had a comment about Clown World. What is this?
Yes, so I was watching another YouTuber. I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was that one black guy with like the big arms. And he always starts off his videos. Oh my goodness! I don't know if you've seen him.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, I'll have to look up his name. I've been watching some of his videos. He's a funny guy. But he was talking about, or no, maybe it was that Paul Joseph Watson.
The two videos I've seen about it, one from Paul Joseph Watson. I think the other one was David Cullen. No.
Or maybe it was Sargon talking about Clown World.
Yeah, Sargon also talked about Clown World.
So I can't remember who exactly brought it up, but they had this video clip of this girl talking. Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what it was.
Like a lunchbox or something like that.
It was Lauren Chin on with this other. It's a black conservative guy. Always wears suits. It looks kind of like a show, but
no, it was his show. He's on the Blaze. I don't remember the name though.
I can't remember his name. So she was on with him because he wanted to discuss 4chan, which is where all these political memes stem from, and the Democrats take them literally.
Yeah.
Initially, there was Pepe, right? Yep. And Pepe was just. I mean, it's just a joke.
It's just a joke frog. And then for some reason, it's a joke frog that everybody on the internet uses. And then for some reason, a small subgroup uses it for Nazi memes, and it becomes the symbol of Nazis, and you can't use Pepe anymore.
So now 4chan has turned that Pepe into a Clown World icon. Basically, Pepe with a big red nose and a rainbow.
And the name is Honkler, and I haven't heard anybody mention this. Okay, so it's called Honkler because it's a play on Hitler.
Yeah, and the honking nose that clowns have.
Yeah, because there's also an internet meme called Hortler, which is it's anytime there's an incident with backward swastika or like Nazism done poorly, you're like, yeah, it's everybody. The comments underneath it is Hail Hortler. Yep. So it's all kind of the same. They stem from the kind of that same root element. Sorry.
So on this video, they were talking about this meme that's popping up in 4chan. Pepe with the clown wig, and then there's like, and so we have here a crazy progressive person crying over it because she said stole their memes, and it was this weird looking clown girl.
Yeah,
like two
colored. It's hard to tell if she's a troll or if she's legitimate because
Lauren Chen said she's like, I want to believe it's just a troll, but man, some of that seems sincere. She's got tears, and you can't tell anymore.
Yeah.
So someone saw in the comments, and they're like, well, that bright-haired clown, I don't know what's her problem. And I was like, I believe the correct term is person of clown. I'm
person of clown.
My new term for Clown World is anybody that belongs over there.
They're a person of clown.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Man, it's ridiculous. No, it's so ridiculous. So the person who's been talking about this is the Jared Holt guy, who's from Media Matters, but not Media Matters. It's like a different, right? It's different group, right? So Media Matter, yeah, Jared Holt is from Media Matters, but they keep saying he's from some other group where they're trying to identify alt-right people, and he's one of the people who is behind the network of Nazis where PewDiePie and Paul Joseph Watson and Stefan Monolu and Lauren Chin all equals Hitler, because he made this big network of all these people and like, see, look, this person was on a stream with this person, and then Lauren Chin was on a stream with Richard Spencer. Not even acknowledging that she was on the opposition to Richard Spencer. Lauren Southern was in a stream. Wait, no, not Lauren Southern.
I don't know anybody that agrees with that dope.
Yeah, very few people agree with that dope. Sargon of Akkad was against Spencer. Styx, Hex, and Hammer was against Spencer.
Yeah, it was an interesting.
Oh no, Lauren Southern was against Millennial Woes. Millennial Woes is kind of in the same Spencer camp. Yeah, so that debate was against. But anyway, they were on the stream together. That means they're part of the Nazis, or they're a gateway to Nazism. And insanity. That's the kind of stuff the Media Matters reports on. And now Jared Holt was reporting on clowns being the symbol of Nazis, and like that's the entire point.
I think they actually understand what a Nazi is.
Yeah,
because even Richard Spencer, well, I think he's a complete idiot, and I don't believe in any ethno state. I think that limits society.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, we had 3 streams on that whole thing.
He's not asking to kill anybody.
Yeah.
He's not
asking. I think ultimately his policies would lead to that, but he doesn't think so. So
he's just asking to kind of separate to where there is a white ethno state and everybody else can go somewhere else. But he's not like Hitler, where he's wanting to purge the world of, name your race or color or gender or whatever. So even as far right and loony as that guy is, he's not as bad as the Nazi idealism.
Yeah, far right, not so much. He's definitely he's far left.
He's not advocating for the eradication or genocide of anybody.
Yeah. So he's a white nationalist, which not.
And Nazis were white nationalists, but they were more. They wanted to commit mass genocide.
Okay,
that was their goal.
Yeah,
so
there was
that clown. Wouldn't quite. He's about as close as I would say could be a neo-Nazi-ish, but that's still not the same sentiment. So I think the left is just anything they don't like is just a Nazi.
Yeah,
they're now calling Jews Nazis. They're now calling black people Nazis that are conservative.
Ben Shapiro has been called a Nazi, I think, by Jared Holt,
and it makes no sense.
So while wearing a yarmulke,
Nazi is.
He's one of those yarmulke wearing Nazis.
I mean,
Candace Owens is also a Nazi.
Nazi is strictly a socialist party. It is what they are advocating for. Other than the genocide part, they haven't gone that far yet, but who knows? With all the white hate going around, that could be the next thing where, hey, we need to go kill all the whites because they've had their time and now they need to be wiped off the earth. I could see that coming in the next.
And it's they for some reason don't see the parallels between everything that they're doing when they're talking about white people holding them down, and we need reparations, and they're controlling the system and the patriarchy, and they're keeping everybody down, and we need to kill them all out. Like
said about the Jews.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like that's all the rhetoric about the Jews in Nazi Germany. They were the ruling class or whatever. They owned all the industries. They owned that's the entire
all the bookmarkings and censorship that came from them. The persecution of other political parties and strong-arming them to where they had to shut up, that comes from the left. I mean, play for play, they are about to repeat what caused World War II in the first.
Yeah, and instead of it being a Jewish Holocaust, it's going to be a white person Holocaust, or anybody who they think is white, or anybody who, it has the same opinions as.
I think they've kind of combined white and conservative as even a black person is conservative. They're now part of this white group. It's stupid. It's
very bizarre, and this is something Candace Owens talked about. Now, I'm going to get more into this later, but I do want to talk about Notre Dame first, because I want to kind of end on the Candace thing, because that ties into the main thing I want to talk about tonight.
Yep.
But she talked about this is they only acknowledge race if you believe or accept their ideas. Then it's all about race. If you are a leftist and you accept and acknowledge theirs, well, then race comes into play. But if you are right-leaning or if you're a conservative in any way, shape, or form, then they dismiss you as, your race doesn't matter because you've got the wrong opinions, or you're just parroting these talking points. And somebody wrote this on Twitter either yesterday or the day before or something like that. He was talking about it's really easy to get a TV show. You just have to have, if you're a gay person or a person of color, just spout conservative talking points, even if you don't believe them. Because he was talking about Dave Rubin and Candace Owens and some of these other, and Lauren Chen, because she's HAPA. And she's like, yep, that's how you get a TV show. And I'm like, so it has nothing to do with what they say or that people like what these people are
so were they implying that Rubin and Lauren Chen don't believe what they're saying? They only use it to get a show?
That was the implication of what this person was saying, but he was also saying the only reason they have a show is because of their minority status. And I'm like, but doesn't that just prove that conservatives are not racist, and it should prove that they don't care if you're gay or not? They're like, hey, if you got something worthwhile hearing or worthwhile to say, you get a show.
It's weird because Rubin's not a conservative; he's a lefty.
Yeah,
he's a.
He keeps calling himself a liberal, but
classic liberal, as in Democrats from maybe 20 years ago. He's kind of along that line, where left of center, but still within normal reasoning.
Yeah,
and he's willing to have a conversation and talk, which is why conservatives are like, no, that's fine. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
You want to be Democrat? Fine. You want to believe left ideals? Just be like this, just open-minded and understand when you're on the wrong and when you gotta
walk away disagreeing. You can walk away disagreeing, but at least you came to the table.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, man, that really ties in well with the other stuff I want to talk about later, but we'll sidebar that for now and talk about Notre Dame, because I don't know if you've seen what happened there. I don't know how you've been following this, but
I've heard about the fires and that they kind of went out earlier this morning and
they're
to rebuild, but last I heard they didn't know the cause.
They're right now, they have ruled out arson, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And they've been doing
construction
on it, so.
But this seems blatant. There have been 11 fires in Catholic churches in France within the past, it's like 3 or 4 months or something like that. It's within a very short time frame. Yeah, 11 church fires. Not like, hey, there's fires everywhere in France. It's specifically targeted against Christian churches, depending on how you view Catholic. Anyway, specifically Catholic churches.
I'll say that still falls in the realm of Christianity. It's comes from the same background.
Yeah,
it's a symbolism of Christianity.
Yeah, well, don't, without getting in the whole sidebar thing. Yeah, okay. Just taking it as basic overall Christianity, as in everything is all together. Yes, then yes, symbols of Christianity. And most of the other cases have been ruled as arson because there's no examples of them starting just randomly and all that sort of thing. So you're like, okay, there's been targeted arson incidents against churches in France within the last few months, and then Notre Dame goes up in flames, and it's not. That fire blazed and took the entire roof collapsed, and it blazed. You're like, how does something like that get to that point accidentally? It's a mostly stone structure. What inside? There's not
in there. They don't have gas pipes everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, how did they rule out accelerants? The other thing is there's video footage going around while the fire is starting, when the fire department initially comes in and starts starting to put out the fire. There's somebody walking around inside the building, and it's not one of the clergymen. It's not it. They're trying to identify that person because they're like, who is that guy? The church was supposed to be empty at the time. It was after hours. There was no construction going on at the time. At the time when the fire.
So he's walking around while it's on fire.
Yeah. Like at the early stages. He's not part of the crew putting it out. He's not part of the construction crew. He's not part of the clergy. It's some unidentified person in the building
how long they saw
as the fire starts. Yeah. And then, but the police have ruled out arson the day after. Which, how do they even know the source of the fire at this point in time? The fire just stopped, like a couple hours, like early this morning, like you said. It just stopped, and they'd ruled out arson like before noon today. And you're like, how do you even know the source of what started all this? Usually, it takes weeks or to identify the source of a fire in a home, let alone a structure as large as Notre Dame.
Well, I hadn't kept up enough to know about the other church fires, but that's definitely an odd string of coincidences. Yeah. Have they identified who the arsons were in the other ones?
No. As far as I know, there's no. But I mean, it seems pretty obvious. So here's the other thing that was going on, and Paul Joseph Watson was one of the people to break this, is they had live streams of Notre Dame on fire. And there are countless posts under those streams of people sending smiley faces. They have comments saying that, oh, this is a horrible tragedy. How dare, I feel sorry for that fire because it has to burn using fuel from Notre Dame. Like, stuff along those lines. You're like, people praising the destruction of Notre Dame. And I'm like, they're upvoting these things. They're smiling. They're sending links. It's like, ha, ha, ha. It serves them right. And a lot of these a lot of the comments on these same videos that are sending smiley face, you can see it's all written in, it's not in French, not in English. I don't know what language it is, but pretty sure it comes from the Middle East. I mean, no guarantees, but based on the person's picture and their name involving Mohammed.
Okay, well,
it seems obvious these ties, like, yeah.
If you take another look at what's going on in Europe and their immigration crisis, where they're getting swarmed with masses of people from the Middle East. I mean, London is now one of the most violent cities, period. Yeah. Even though they have banned guns, they're now trying to ban knives and ban some other stuff because they can't control it. But how many times have you heard them come out and say, this is due to the mass immigration of Muslim extremists?
Never.
There are normal Muslims that are peaceful. Fine, I get that. That could even be a good portion of them. But there seems to be an disproportionate amount of extremists coming in doing it, and yet none of it's getting called out. In fact, the one guy, Tommy Robinson, went to jail because he did call it out. These are grooming gangs, and they're definitely Muslims and came in with the immigration.
Yeah.
I've been trying to tell you guys, and he went to jail for it.
Yep.
They're trying to hush. So if they have concluded that these are terrorist attacks from extremists, they're going to try and keep it under wraps because they don't want to just tell the public one of your most beloved icons that's been around for almost a millennia was almost burned down by a terrorist attack because we let all these immigrants in.
Yeah.
They cannot say it because they would have just shoved their foot right in their mouth.
And that's what it's looking like. It's looking like if they have discovered any kind of arson, and based on what's going on in France, based on the whole situation, this looks like Muslim extremist arson to me. It seems almost,
yeah. Disclaimer, it's all speculative. We are not there. We're not.
Yeah, it's all speculation at this point. We don't know, but considering the hatred and considering how people are rejoicing at the destruction of it, so that's the thing that I cannot wrap my mind around. This is a landmark. Notre Dame Cathedral is world known. It's world famous. It goes on the same line as the Washington Monument, the Taj Mahal, the Sydney Opera House. These are structures that you're like, wow, that looks amazing. That is impressive architecture. The Taj Mahal is not. It was actually I guess it's not directly a religious symbol, but that's one of the it has a very steep significance in the Hindus, or amongst Hindus. There's also structures in there like as with the Angkor Wat. That's oh man, I want to make sure I don't, because that's also a really impressive structure, but I'm pretty sure that's either, oh man, I got to look this up because I was looking these up before. It's like
the temples with the original swastika symbol, but before Hitler took it over.
Yeah, because I mean, no, that symbol has been used in various religions.
It was supposed to represent peace.
In some religions, it represents peace. In some religions, it represents power. Like in Greek,
Buddhist.
And Angkor Wat is Buddhist. Sorry, that's what I was, because I was like, I know I was looking at this. I'm like, these are world-renowned structures. If one of these was set ablaze or was on fire and was collapsing before our very eyes, do you think Christians would be out there cheering, serves them right for? Do you think, I want to know what the opinion of atheists when they see that is a terrible loss for the world as a whole, not just Christians and Catholics. That's why one of the areas where I disagreed with Ben Shapiro, because he's talking about this as like, oh, it's a loss to the Western world. I'm like, no, this is a loss to humanity whatsoever. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. This is an iconic structure that has been around since 1200.
Yeah.
It is a piece of our history, and it is a beautiful piece of architecture. The historical significance of this place is it's beyond words. That's a good way of saying it. You're like, this would be as tragic as if we saw the pyramids before they were defaced and defiled. We saw them in their full majesty and beauty because they were covered in reflective surface. Like, it wasn't limestone. It was no, it wasn't gold, or maybe it was limestone. No, the existing rocks are limestone, but it was covered in material. I don't remember what it is.
I think it was another stone, but it was really polished and smooth.
Yeah, it was polished and smooth, and it made the whole thing shine like it was visible from a distance.
Whatever that material is at the top of the big one that's still kind of there, there's like just fragments of it.
I got to look this up because this is going to bug me. Yeah, but it would be like you see the pyramids before they're defiled, and then you're watching them actively be defiled, and you're like, that's a terrible loss.
It's yeah, either gold or electrum, I guess. Oh, then blocks of white limestone from quarries were used to. So they've got the regular stone that the pyramids are made of now.
Mm-hmm.
They had a layer of some sort of metal that was either gold or electrum, and then they had the smooth limestone on the outside that was polished.
Yeah, and then covered in gold. Yeah.
So the two layers on the outside were stripped off from bandits and.
Yeah. I mean, if you met, yeah, because I don't know if you've seen the artist renditions of what they think the pyramids might have looked like. You're like the pyramids are still impressive, but wow, if that's what they looked like in their heyday, and then imagine being there and watching people breaking off pieces and just taking them away, and you're like, wow, there's something amazingly constructive, beautiful to behold. And you're taking away from that, and you're like, they're impressive structures still, and the Notre Dame is still going to be a historical site. It's still going to be a place people visit because a lot of the marble work, a lot of the stone and architecture remains. The roof completely collapsed. We lost 2 of the stained glass windows that were there for
hundreds of years.
Yeah, hundreds of years. They're destroyed, completely melted. But they did manage to save some artifacts and stuff like that. So it's going to be something that's still visitable. But okay, same thing with the Roman Colosseum. Like, it's collapsed right now and it's still a tourist site. But man, imagine if that had been preserved. And it's such a historically significant piece of architecture, and it's in ruins now. And that's what we're seeing is like, we thought we were beyond that point where it's like, okay, these historically important structures, we have the technology to preserve them. We have the ability to, unless somebody sets it on fire or
another report that
they say it's an accident, but I don't buy that for a second.
I'm not sure how they're going to repair it because they used some sort of like ancient giant birchwood for their massive.
Oh yeah.
And they said they don't even know if they have trees like that anywhere in Europe anymore.
Yeah. I mean,
so they're going to have some trouble getting. They might have to, use some redwoods from California or some other massive tree. But Europe's kind of been that expanded everywhere and knocked down all the major forests. So they still got forests around, but they don't have trees like that.
Yeah.
So they're trying to work out the logistics of how they're even going to get the main beams put back up and replaced. It's going to be hard to get that back to at least looking like it was, but it's still not going to be the original.
Yeah, I mean, they might just have to go with steel, but it's not going to look. It's not going to look the same, and it's not going to. Nope. They're not going to be able to replace those stained glass windows. At least
it's going to be another Fresno Jesus. Good intentions, but it's not going to go back the same.
Okay. So it's kind of, while this is a tragedy, and I'm trying to say it's like, yeah, this is a loss for the world as a whole. But I like the Fresno Jesus because that does kind of caveat into something else I wanted to say about this. Is a lot of people were bashing Ben Shapiro, which I don't understand, because Trump responded or said something in his response about, oh well, why don't they fly water tankers over and douse the flames? But maybe that would help. At least he was offering that suggestion, and not the best suggestion. Yeah,
I think that would crush the building.
Well, that's the end. It might put out the fire. That's okay. It is a way of putting out fire, but in the process, it might have caved in the roof before the fire took it out. They might, yeah. So it seemed like somebody who doesn't know anything about this is trying to give the professionals advice, which doesn't make any sense. Like,
I mean, people do that. They offer suggestions.
Yeah,
trying to be helpful. I guess
it's not a suggestion that is completely like, oh, hey, why don't they try putting it out like with gasoline? Because that's what a lot of people in the comments were talking about. I was like, oh yeah, that we should help those firemen by providing the gasoline. Yeah,
it's just an ill-informed suggestion, but with good intention behind.
Yes. So, and that's ill-informed, and it's one of those things. Is like on the surface, it seemed like an okay idea, but if you actually look into it, you're like, no, that's probably going to cause more harm than damage. And the people currently putting out the fire are probably adequate at their jobs, I would hope. The other thing is I'm surprised there was no mention of putting foam, because that's something that has been used in the past as far as structure fires. But it looks like they were just spraying the flames with water. And I guess it's less damaging to the structure itself, because maybe that foam has a tendency to stick on stuff, or maybe it eats through materials, and so they didn't want that. But that usually when they douse like these big fires in some kind of foam layer, that it suffocates the flame a lot better than dousing it with water.
Yeah. That's dependent on the accelerant.
Yeah.
If there was one.
Yeah. I think there was one, but
I'll just put that disclaimer out there. It's all speculation. We don't know.
Yeah, that's speculation. I don't know. It seems like there's a pattern of arsons on religious structures, Christian religious structures specifically in France. This one goes up in flames. The people who are talking about the situation are cheering on the flames.
Yeah, but again, it's the internet, and so you still have to take that with a grain of salt. There's just a lot of trolls or people that like to watch things and try and crack jokes and be stupid about it.
Okay. And so that goes to the kind of the gallows humor type thing, is because some people were using gallows humor to talk about the event. And it doesn't dismiss the tragedy. And Ben Shapiro tweeted, why doesn't their football team help out? They're volunteer to help out putting out the flames, and then put as if Trump was the one saying that. Because that was the joke. It was at Trump's expense, not at Notre Dame's expense. And people were blasting him. And he's like, yeah, so he ended up taking that tweet down. I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with that tweet, because it's
a Trump's silly idea. It's not actually about the devastation.
Notre Dame. It's at Trump's expense. It's not about Notre Dame. It's not dismissing or diminishing the tragedy of Notre Dame. It's like, well, that was kind of dumb. About Trump.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the same as if two people are standing watching the fire, and one guy says, well, why don't they bring in a giant helicopter and just dump a bucket of water on it? And the guy looks over and says, yeah, well, why don't we just call in the Air Force? Maybe they could put it out.
Yeah,
it's a sarcastic remark, because you thought what they just said, they didn't even think before they spoke it.
Yeah, that's what it was. But he ended up taking down the tweet and apologizing for it, and yet for some reason various media outlets are still blasting him for that. Because he made a public apology, never apologized, because they won't.
Unless he says it's sarcastic. I made fun of the president's tweet. I understand you guys are close, and I didn't mean to offend your leader.
That would have been an excellent apology.
Yes. I mean,
but he didn't do that.
You should know better than that.
Yeah, he didn't do that. And yet now there's magazines saying, "Oh yeah, I can't believe he did. He's such a disgrace to Catholics." And I'm like, "What? Nothing about his tweet was with
Christianity. What are they talking about?
I don't know. It's ridiculous.
They're pretty much anti-Christian.
But there was something I saw on Twitter that was gallows humor related, and as soon as I started buzzing up laughing. I'm like, yeah, it's a tragedy, but that's something that is like, that's a good joke. So I think it was Saul the Organist, and it was a picture of Notre Dame on fire, and he said, so it was a picture of Notre Dame before the fire, and then a picture of Notre Dame after the fire. And the picture before was labeled Notre Dame about to release it has information on Hillary's email scandal. And then like, oh, yep, that's. So I was like, oh, that's a good joke. That's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, it is a tragedy and it's a bad thing. And if it is found out that this is some sort of arson or terrorist attack, they need to take some action, because now it is starting to devastate Western history, world icons. It's tearing down everything that we built up to get to Western society.
Yeah.
And they need to start putting their foot down. However, with the speed of the internet, there is not really any of that, oh, too soon. And the left really doesn't care. They just want to seem the emotional, empathetic group, hoping people believe in their whiny, crying, heartfelt, but then in quotes, BS.
Yeah. And that's the difference here, is both of those examples of gallows humor. Ben Shapiro's was at Trump's expense. Saul the Argonist, his was at Hillary's expense. Not so much, it wasn't insulting or downplaying Notre Dame, and yet people on the internet were specifically saying, yeah, watch it burn, burn, baby, burn. This is great. Yay, more like this. Serves them right. Like, there's gallows humor, which is fine as long as it's not at the expense of the thing being destroyed or the victim. If that gallows humor is used to downplay the situation, like, yeah, it's, hey, just make it a live joke, but it's not at the expense of the tragedy. It's at the expense of somebody else or something else. It's to get your mind off of the terrible loss instead of focusing on something else. Like that, oh, yeah, this is a terrible tragedy, but yeah, Hillary is a terrible person. Okay, yeah, Hillary's a terrible person. All right. Oh, man, back to thinking about Notre Dame being on fire. It's to get you to think about something else that is either absurd or idiotic or something other than the tragedy at hand. But it's a whole different thing when you're making fun or making light of the tragedy itself. And that's what I was trying to, is like that distinction between the two. So hopefully that came across, and hopefully that doesn't seem like, oh, it's because I'm afraid somebody will hear that and think, oh, well, it's okay when you guys do it, but it's not okay when they do it. I'm like, it should be pretty obviously two separate things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anybody that still has an open mind and isn't boxed in by some progressive emotional narrative and just follow along with what they're told, it's just a joke. And it's not at the expense of the tragedy. It's at the expense because the president gave a stupid tweet, or because Hillary Clinton set herself up to be the demoness of the U.S. She did that.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, it's a terrible loss for history, but at least the structure still remains. It didn't get completely destroyed. They were able to salvage a lot of the stuff from the interior, and it can be somewhat rebuilt. So it's not a complete loss, although it is a terrible loss. And the fact that we have to rebuild it at all is pretty sad. Yeah, I can't imagine that. So it could have been an accident, but then I don't understand how that accident turned into a blazing fire big enough to take out the roof of the structure.
I mean, again, it's hard to say. If nobody was supposed to be in there, however the fire started, nobody got there quick enough and it started burning up whatever's on the walls and furniture and stuff inside. But it does seem suspect.
Yeah. And it seems way too early to rule out arson, but
yeah, they just put it out and they're still sorting through the rubble. They got half of this, one of the spires is completely collapsed in. How are they gonna? It's gonna take them a while to dig through and find out what happened.
The fact that they've so quickly ruled out arson, it heralds back for me as far as the Las Vegas shooter, where the next day they're like, oh, no ties to terrorism, no ties to ISIS, Al Qaeda. What? How do you know that already? It's kind of the same thing. It's and I've talked about my theories on that as far as him being an arms dealer that had associations with the FBI and various other, possibly various other agencies. But that's what it seems like. Like, it's way too soon for you to make that determination. So you're making that determination as part of a cover-up. At least that's my perception of the events. Is like, yeah, if you were willing, because usually it's we're not sure yet. We don't have an official statement. We're looking into it. That's the typical claim.
An official report on everything that led up to that, or if they've got any motive.
Yeah, but they have made no progress in that investigation, but they knew within 24 hours that he had no ties to terrorism.
Yeah.
What? So it's kind of the same thing. It's like, oh well, you're making this definitive statement, whereas in most other cases, you're still looking into it and investigating it. And, oh, we haven't ruled out this and we haven't ruled out that. That's usually the statements at this point in time. But they're definitively saying, nope, we've ruled out arson. This is not intentional. This was an accident. And they want, the other thing about that is they don't explain how they've ruled that. It's not like oh, well, according to eyewitness reports or something like that, it started here or this was left on. Somebody's
candles burning in a candelabra and it fell over, caught something on fire.
Something along those lines. You're like, okay, that would be an accident. But it's like, nope, we've ruled out arson. No reason to think there's anything other than an accident. And it also reminds me a little bit of the Seth Rich incident. We're like, yep, just the robbery where nothing was stolen. And he happens to work for Hillary and possibly the guy who leaked information to WikiLeaks. Yep, nothing to see here. Make that determination within the next 8 hours after he's dead. What? Anyway, all right, let's shift gears and go back to the Candace topic. Or I guess I sort of tied into that when I was talking about how they don't acknowledge race if you have the wrong viewpoints. Then you're just viewed as, oh, you're just one of their pawns, or they're just using you as a what was the phrase they used? Token. Yeah, you're just their token.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, I talked about this last week because she went to Congress last Monday, or was it last Tuesday? I don't remember. Yeah, sometime last week she was before Congress, and she gave what I thought was an amazing appearance before Congress. She did a
job. I did catch part, and I thought it was very on point. And
like everything that she said on that, I was like, yeah, that's wow, way to stick it to them. That's exactly what they needed to hear, and it's exactly what you needed to say. As pretty blatantly, obviously, what they were doing, and you called them out as soon as they did it. That was fantastic. So I talked about that, and I did mention my 2 cents in that, and I do apologize. I apologize during that stream, and I'm apologizing in this stream for calling him out without him actually being in the stream and giving a chance to respond to what I was saying about him, and because they had talked about this on their Sunday stream. So I did have May on there, and she was a part of that Sunday stream, and we talked about it a bit. She seemed to have a little more open mind on the situation. She did get me in touch with my 2 cents, and we had a pretty lengthy back and forth in a group on Twitter. Yeah, and I have pretty much lost all respect for my 2 cents after that encounter.
Do you have Cliff Notes?
Yeah, the Cliff Notes is, despite it all, he still thinks that she is an insincere individual who is just saying what she needs in order to get ahead and become popular. And I'm like, that doesn't line up with reality.
Doesn't line up with anything. So she started out very much on the left.
Yeah.
She got burned and said, you know what? This is all a farce. There's something wrong here. You can actually watch her progression as she learns more about conservative ideals.
Mm-hmm.
And has begun to talk with other conservatives. You can watch her communication, her talking points, her statistics, her knowledge on a bunch of different subjects, especially related to the Black communities, expand over like the last 2 years. I mean, she has become a very excellent speaker. But it doesn't seem to be an act, and if she's trying this for popularity points or media attention, she's on the wrong side.
Yeah, I was about to say, sure, she's been on Fox, and she's gotten to the White House and all that sort of thing.
With the rest of the Democrats and been a major talking point because she is a good speaker.
Yeah, she would have been their poster child. And then, so she would have been on all the mainstream media. She would be, like, right now, she's kind of she's comfortable. I should say she's comfortable financially. Had she been on the left, she'd be a multimillionaire like Bernie Sanders and like AOC right now. And like all these people, they get put as the poster child of the left, and they get paid out the wazoo, and they've got, and anytime anybody badmouths them, oh, how dare you attack all minorities, or how dare you attack women? It's, they defend their own, and they, go through all.
Well, see,
that's where the position she could be if she was on the left.
I think there's a good comparison here. If you compare her with someone like Kanye West, remember when he went through his slight conservative period until the left and media started bashing him, and he ran back to his money? He got those ideas from her. She was one of the main people that he thought, this is an intelligent Black woman. She's speaking the truth. He even had, had conversations with her. And that's
what led to her showing up at the White House.
You kind of glimpse a little bit of him starting to say, this is real. This is right. And that's why he went to the White House. And then after that, the music community, mainstream media, Hollywood, they bashed him severely. And he ran away with his tail between his legs. Much as they've hounded and harassed her, she's standing very strong on everything she's stated. In fact, her talking points and her views only seem to be more solidified over as the years go on. And all of this has been out in public. You can see where she first came into the public view, and she was very much on the left. She was basically trying to not call it a doxing site, but trying a way to almost like a cheap person's version of the Southern Poverty Law Center, where you could just add conservatives and whatever their names and their info onto this site.
And I do have to clarify, had she actually released what she wanted to release, it would have been a doxing site.
Yes. The potential for that was very clear. But after that kind of fell apart and she started getting eaten up by her own, you can see when she kind of woke up and said, something's wrong here. I was on your side. Why are you attacking me? And then she realized, because she was not a puppet. They saw her starting to wake up, and so they just ran after her, tried to go for the jugular.
And that's what I was trying to explain. And I'm like, there's all kinds of, there's interviews after interview, and it's always been consistent. It's been the same story, the same consistent narrative. And this goes all the way back to the actual news reports talking about the incident when she was in high school. It has been a consistent narrative. It has not changed the entire time. She describes the exact same set of incidents in the exact same manner. It has been incredibly consistent. She has not changed her story once. She has not changed any part of her story. She has not tried to downplay her involvement with social autopsy. She tried to embrace it, and when she got dragged through the mud for embracing it, she shut it down. And it's like, well, and that's one of the things the highly contentious point when I was talking to my 2 cents is like, okay, you criticize her for not for having involvement with social autopsy and trying to downplay it, because that was one of his comments in the video, and he appended a comment on that stream where he's like, thanks to HUMANe Mind for pointing out that I said she was trying to hide her involvement with social autopsy, and that's factually not correct. And I was like, she's been talking about that. She still talked about that on Russell Brand's show. That was almost 6 months after the Rubin Report debate. So it wasn't something that she completely is saying, oh, no, shh, don't tell anybody about that. Keep it a secret. No, she talked about openly that, she was involved in that website. That's not a secret. It's not something she tried to hide. So it wasn't something she tried to hide. And so it's like, it's something she embraces. And I'm like, well, but embracing it is also the wrong decision. It's like, well, Okay, so hiding it would be a wrong decision. Also, acknowledging it, embracing that it's part of her past is also the wrong decision. Which decision would be right? There is no right answer. She's a bad, evil person no matter what.
I mean, she would be a key person for the hashtag walk away movement.
She has been. That's what the whole, that's her Brexit movement is a subsection of walk away. It's focused specifically about blacks.
Like her that would have tried to create something. Maybe she wasn't intentionally trying to create a doxing site, but it should have been obvious that that's would have been the use.
Well,
she was trying to serve a purpose for progressive.
And she said right away that it was a naive effort. It was something not well thought out. She hadn't thought it through. It hadn't come to these conclusions. And when she started getting these criticisms, it's kind of clicked. It's like, oh yeah, yep, that would have been bad. It became more obvious over time how bad the idea was. But it's understandable why she would want this site, given her past history and given what the Gamergate people were asking for at the time.
Okay.
Gamergate, we're talking about being harassed by these anonymous trolls and getting death threats by random emails. And she's like, oh, well, if somebody knows who that is, problem solved. Oh, wait, you don't want me to figure out who that is? You don't want to know who the people who have been sending you death threats. You don't want anybody else to know who they are. Yeah.
I would say, to kind of clarify some things, or at least my particular position, I think my 2 cents is a pretty intelligent guy. I do watch a couple of his videos, have commented on a few, but there is a tendency for anybody to have some kind of bias.
Yeah.
So, and obviously he's got some against Candace Owens. We don't know her personally, so I can't say he's incorrect. But from my perspective, she does seem to be trending in one direction and hasn't faltered on her
statement. So that was the primary thing I was trying to hammer home, is that she has interacted directly with Charlie Kirk, Dennis Prager, Mike Cernovich, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin. She's interacted with these people directly and on an ongoing basis. And they don't see her as being fake or phony. They actually embrace her, and she's a part of PragerU now. She's got her own show on PragerU, and she's been a part of Turning Point USA for almost a year now, or possibly more than a year. These are people who know her better than you, and they don't arrive at the same conclusion, and yet you're on the outside looking in and saying, oh, nope, she's fake. Like, how can you possibly know that from the outside looking in? You've never actually talked to her in real life.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's entitled to that opinion. He can have that.
Yeah, he can have that, but it seems very far-fetched that all of these people who have directly interacted with her and have actually, know her better wouldn't come to the same conclusion, and yet you, for some reason, after watching a couple videos from Tree of Logic, suddenly know her entire backstory.
Well, that's why I brought up the Kanye comparison, because I mean, man, conservatives and the right just kind of embraced him and said, hey, we got him. Finally got a Hollywood megastar here, top of the charts in the music industry. Oh. Conservative, come on, and patting him on the back. Hey, come visit the White House. And I knew already as soon as I heard Kanye's talking stuff. I'm like, I'm glad he's trying to be woke, but he doesn't belong in the White House. And Trump can be conversing with Kim Kardashian. Those aren't the people that conservatives need to align themselves with. Because he has
on the bright side of that, it did result in someone being pardoned who shouldn't have been in jail to begin with.
I mean, yes, there was something good that came out. So,
and the prison reform efforts that they did, as far as stems from that interaction with Kanye and Kim Kardashian and
but he does have a tendency to flip flop
Oh, dude, Kanye is incredibly temperamental. I mean, he's a flip flopping. He's also egotistical, narcissist. He's got a history of this, so that's not somebody you want as your poster child.
But as a comparison, I would say I'm glad he's got the right intentions. I'm glad he's trying to inform himself on both sides and try and find where the truth is and where he's being lied to. I'm glad he's trying to at least have an open mind. That's a good thing. But since he does seem to be a bit controversial and temperamental and flip-flop on many different subjects, then that's not really a stable person to base and say, yeah, just come on in and, you know, wholeheartedly big bear hug and welcome to the side. But you do not get that at all with Candace. It's just once she kind of realized what was happening with her perspective and what her original beliefs were, you can see her change quickly and then continue in one direction, very solid.
Yes.
So just based off of that, I would say it's a safe assumption she believes in it, she preaches it, she walks the walk, talks the talk, and has done so for at least the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Since she decided that she doesn't want to be a leftist or a progressive, that she actually believes conservatism is the right mindset. She's been continuously on that steady path. So I would put that in her boat and say that's definitely something that you should consider and say, okay, I think this very definitely could be sincere. So I would disagree with my 2 cents, but again, he can have his opinion. I'm not going to think any less of the guy. I think on a lot of subjects, he does have some very good opinions.
Yeah, and I think this is an intellectual blind spot where the well was poisoned against Candace Owens because of Tree of Logic, and that was the whole stem or the root of the controversy about the social autopsy and Candace being a fake conservative at the time. It all stems back to Tree of Logic, and Tree of Logic's videos on the whole situation were fraught with factually incorrect statements that have been proven wrong repeatedly. So, and also Tree of Logic on her, she's not like looking at, if you go through her other channels, like a lot of her other videos, like she's a moron. She makes a bunch of claims and you're like, well, that's not true. That's not, and it's like, well, this is a source. If your entire perception of someone is based on the opinions or the original argument presented by this person, probably check into that. So I think this is an intellectual blind spot for my 2 cents. And after that interaction, I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. This is not. I am no longer going to be. I was planning on becoming one of his supporters and all that sort of stuff on his channel, but I'm like, yeah, after that, I can't. I still think he's a logical, rational guy, but it's one thing. It was the claim that he's willing to accept the truth, and when presented with the truth, and when I talked about, it's like, okay, here's what's more. This is more likely the situation given the evidence we have. Presenting that argument, and he would agree with all the evidence, but dismiss the conclusion. I'm like, at what point if somebody is going to present themselves as a rational thinker, and they have this blind spot, when presented with this blind spot, they ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist, that's a problem for me. And that leads me into the main topic I want to talk about tonight, although we are 2 hours into this stream.
Yeah. Well, I would like to inject one point, and this might seem a little contradictory, but if you are already in dismay of his opinions and saying, well, that one subjective view has now disqualified him from influencing or having any sort of influence on me or me bothering to listen to his channel, you're kind of falling in the same boat where he already has a bias built against her. So fall into that same trap. Maybe there could be some sort of olive branch and say, okay, on this subject, we don't agree. I've had a motto my entire life of I give everybody a chance to make one big mistake. Minor ones, I don't care. That's forgivable. But big mistake, it'll hurt. It'll go against what I believe, but I think everybody, for the most part, deserves a second chance. There's only one person who I don't forgive for one big mistake, not going there. But everybody else, I'll swallow my pride. I'll take the hurt, and I'll say, all right, you get a second chance, and I'll wipe it away. I think that's kind of the Christian view. But a second or third time, I can't ignore it. That's a pattern. Now we have something where we really disagree. So don't discredit someone for one particular subject where you don't agree.
Well, for me, this is strike 3. And that's something I brought. So that was something I brought up in the conversation because we were talking about this, and I'm like, well, the same claims that you are currently making against Candace, somebody could make against you, and saying that you are fake and you're just doing this for views and popularity because there are people you associate yourself with currently who are known doxers, who are known bad actors, and yet you are advertising their channels. You hang out with them on streams. This is Esoteric Entity and Filthy Heretic, both of who are.
Like, I don't know who they are.
They are ANCAPs, and Mr. Dapperton is I don't know if you know who Mr. Dapperton is. So Mr. Dapperton has got a fairly large channel for being an anarcho-capitalist and just kind of a YouTuber. He's kind of the king of this smaller community of ANCAPs. And he went out of his way to promote my 2 cents and promote Filthy Heretic and promote Esoteric.
Accelerationism versus what was the other term? They were talking about ANCAP, but is it good to just accelerate the collapse of a country to start?
Yeah, collapse terror.
It would be a good idea for accelerationism. So I caught part of that stream, and I think 2 of those guys were on it.
Yeah, so one of the first videos I made on my channel was that Sargon Go Drunk Your Home, because that was a response that he was making to a video clip collaboration of various libertarians and ANCAPs talking about these intellectual inconsistencies with people who believe in the state or that the government can solve all their problems. And that video had Lauren Southern and a bunch of people. Yeah, I'm trying to remember names. So is Lauren Southern, that guy T, Larkin Rose, Mr. Dapperton, and the Esoteric and all that weren't on that video. But Mr. Dapperton is the one who arranged that collaboration. He's the one who suggested it and got the video clips from the other people, put it all together and all that sort of thing. So he got a pretty decent following on YouTube. And he was promoting smaller ANCAP channels, like the ANCAP Kid or whatever he's calling himself right now.
See, I don't know. I kind of view ANCAP as the opposite of socialism. It's still a utopian idea that won't work.
Okay. Yeah. But okay.
It won't work.
But okay. So whether you agree with it or not, so this is.
But understand that there will always be a state when society gets large enough. It has to be. So unless you plan on having self-settlements dotted around, and that's as large as they get, is just a settlement, ANCAP won't work.
You say I would disagree with you on that, but that's kind of irrelevant. I'm just kind of laying the background.
Who's going to decide?
Yeah. I'm just trying to lay out the background of Mr. Dapperton. So that's his position. He's pretty influential in this community, and he used his position of influence to help promote these smaller channels like Esoteric and Filthy Heretic. And then once Filthy Heretic and Esoteric got somewhat larger, whatever, had a decent following where they could actually support themselves on their own, they turned on Mr. Dapperton. They started working with an actual anarcho-socialist who doxed Mr. Dapperton. So Mr. Dapperton, his information's out there thanks to some anarcho-socialist releasing some of his information, somebody who also made legal threats against Dapperton.
For 1 sec. What is an anarcho-socialist? That seems contradictory.
It is. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
You can't have anarchy and socialism because socialism is where...
It's a requirement.
Yeah.
You have to abide by socialism. And if you don't...
There has to be a structure in order for socialism to work. Therefore, it is an anarchy.
Yeah. There has to be somebody to enforce that rules. Whereas anarcho-capitalism, capitalism is voluntary interaction. It's all voluntary. There is no enforcement structure.
Yeah.
So anarcho-socialism is self-contradictory. But so there's this anarcho-socialist guy who has harassed Mr. Dapperton, doxed, released his information, threatened him with legal action. But Mr. Dapperton is like, it was not a sincere threat because it was obviously a hoax from somebody claiming to be a lawyer who wasn't an actual lawyer from a group that doesn't actually exist. But anyway, this individual, Filthy Heretic, and
actual internet trolls.
But actual internet trolls is one thing. It's like, yeah, laughable until they release your information and make death threats against you, and
not all trolls.
That's when it becomes a credible threat, right? If they've released your personal details and have made threats against you, it's like, well, One thing, there's joking around and being stupid and submitting legal paperwork or whatever and acting as if you are going to sue them when you have no legal grounds, and also you haven't even hired a real lawyer. But then there's, you release my personal information and now you're threatening me and my family. Esoteric and filthy heretic, knowing this, we're dismissing that, like, oh, that's not important because this person who's an anarcho-socialist is willing to work with us in order to try to take down some other people by doxing them. What? You're associating with somebody who has attacked a person that you owe your career to. You're working with them in an effort to dox people that you disagree with politically. This was open statements from them. It has been reported. It was on they had multiple live streams where they were talking about this, and they were saying, oh yeah, we were going to do that. And there was a back and forth between them and Mr. Dapperton on this. And I'm like, those guys have lost all credibility. Those guys should be ostracized from the community, and that should have been the appropriate thing to do with them. And then I see them live streaming with my 2 cents, and I'm like,
maybe he's not as filled in on those activities. No, I don't know.
That's what I thought until I informed him, and no, he's aware of it. And I was like, yeah, that was a pretty big strike. I was like, okay, you're aware of what they've done, and yet you still think that they're helping out the anarcho-capitalist community because they've released FNet, which, no, they didn't. They are the embodiment of Dunning-Kruger, man. I looked at some of their stream sites, some of their stuff that they have downloaded. They declare that they have created a way of decentralizing the entire internet. They didn't create shit. FNet is already an open source platform under a different name. They simply copied it, changed the name, changed a couple of things in the code, and then acts like it's something that they provided the internet. And I'm like, no, that's something that's already out there. There's already these decentralized networks.
What?
No, you've provided absolutely nothing.
What decentralized would mean here?
So
in my mind, decentralized would be if we've got major backbone companies that provide the giant pipeline.
No. This is the underlying structure of the internet. So this is not. So the underlying structure of the internet is you have an IP address for every computer. You have a DNS, and there is a DNS server.
Yes.
So in order for your Google browser to work and connect to websites, you type in google.com. It goes to the DNS server. It returns the IP address of Google.
Yep.
You have to go through that centralized DNS server.
There's a bunch of DNS servers.
Yeah, there's a bunch of DNS servers, but you have to use that system. You have to use the system that associates IP address with DNS.
Okay.
FNet, or I forget the actual name of the net. It's something net. Doesn't require DNS servers at all. You can communicate. It is a chain of communication where it's like, okay, I'm communicating with this computer, and this computer knows about that computer knows about that computer. I can talk with the computer at the end of the chain. All it requires is us 4 computers talking to each other. It doesn't require me going to some third-party source, which means your entire network is self-contained. Anybody can join that network and leave that network at any time, but all the traffic on that network is self-contained.
Okay, so it's kind of just like an Ethernet local network on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on a local network, and it's going across. Yeah, you can actually connect to other computers across the internet without going to any DNS servers. And that network traffic is going to go around the world or whatever to get to the other computers. It doesn't matter. There is no way to monitor or disconnect this network because there are so many avenues on which you can connect to a single computer. Right now with the DNS server, they can block your specific IP address so you can't connect to any DNS server. That is something that happens in other countries. This is like how China makes firewalls for, like, oh, you can't go to that specific DNS, block that off. It's like, well, if you're not going through a DNS server, they can't do that. you can actually use VPNs and encryption to actually hide who you're actually connecting to at the end. So you can send like, oh, yeah, you can actually communicate through the
network, and you're VPNing onto a small local Ethernet, basically.
Yeah,
just kind of cloud based, I guess. I mean, it's
it's a pretty amazing technology, but Esso and this other guy didn't make it. It's something that's been out there for 10 plus years. There are alternate methods of doing this, and it's just basically having an internet without using the existing protocols.
I mean, it kind of sounds like Napster or Kazaa or LimeWire, that whole peer-to-peer infrastructure.
Yeah, it is essentially a peer-to-peer infrastructure.
It sounds like version 2 of that.
Except this is at the network level. Like Napster and Kazaa and stuff like that, those operate at the application level as far as a distributed network. But this is at the network tier. So it's further decentralized because you can have decentralized applications on top of a decentralized network. It would be nearly impossible to track what was being sent and who you were talking with specifically, and it would be equally impossible for somebody to block you from talking to that person. That's the idea, is eventually you get the entire internet running on this. All communication is encrypted. You could be talking to someone in China and, talking about whatever you want, and no one can interrupt this communication. No one knows what's going on. No one can track what you're actually doing. That's the ultimate idea behind all this. But these two guys didn't do it. These two guys are claiming that they had something to do with this. And I'm like, you guys took open source code that's already out there, made your own version of it on GitHub.
Slap a little paint on it, put a new logo, bam, new product.
Like there's nothing new here, and they're also making claims about what it can do that it doesn't actually do, because in order for this network to exist, you have to basically rebuild a browser to surf on this new type of internet, because Google is not going to work as far as searching for websites that are using this different protocol, because Google is looking for DNS addresses.
That's what they're looking for. They're looking for that response, that handshake, everything that's built in the current network. So
they're using existing protocols. So you would have to build an entirely new search engine to search on this new network. Good luck. Good luck solving that, you guys who can barely code yourself.
IPs, are they not using that at all for this new network? Then they need to use besides the TCP/IP protocol and bind that browser, which they.
Yeah, so they still have IP addresses, but completely they're abandoning the TCP/IP protocols. It's completely new protocols. So
that won't work with any current browser.
Yeah, it would not. You would have to get people to use entirely new tools. Those entirely new tools would have to be invented. It works in theory, but the amount of people who are willing to latch onto this is very small. So this is not an idea that's going to take off and revolutionize the internet and replace the internet. And I'm like, Bitcoin still uses the regular internet, and how big is that community? It's big. It's still a fraction of people on the internet.
What were those forums? IIRC? That was those early chat forums. I think that's.
I'm not sure. IIRC doesn't ring a bell.
It was like before instant messaging and stuff, and before Reddit. It was
just the regular forums and stuff. Message boards. I don't know.
Sounds like that, because that started to develop as kind of an underground. Communication forum when the internet was still in its infancy.
And if their particular version of the network takes off, that's all it would ever be. It would never grow beyond that, because it's not user friendly. It's not something people are willing to adopt.
Well, then that's probably a few decades off of actually being useful.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And even then, if Bitcoin hasn't caught on with the masses, and that is something immensely useful, and this blockchain in general, as far as a distributed ledger at the application tier, stuff like that is still not taking off the way it should.
Because it's taken us 20 years just to get from, 14K modems or whatever, up to only having high-speed internet in a lot of areas, and even having the unified search engine to be able to browse what is there.
Yeah.
So Google was kind of small fry in the early 2000s.
Yeah. And so even though decentralized networks exist and they are really easy and quick to adopt, Facebook still reigns supreme. YouTube still reigns supreme. That's not going to change anytime soon just because you release some new bit of technology. Like, well, they didn't release it; they copied some technology. Just because they released copied some bit of technology that has a potential to replace all this other stuff, is like, but there's no real demand for it to replace all this stuff. And the vast majority of people are not going to switch to command line and in order to do this. Like computer programmers, sure, you're going to have a small group of people who know what they're doing, who don't mind that sort of thing. This is never going to catch on mainstream. That was my entire criticism. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, these guys are Dunning-Kruger-esque, and they've already shown that they are turncoats. They've already shown that they are willing to dox people despite their efforts to criticize people like, let's see. Yeah, despite their efforts to criticize people for doxing and releasing doxing, they're not above doxing themselves. So I was like, yeah, hanging out with those types of people, even when you know what they've done and what they can do, yet you still consider them valuable assets or members of your communities because they've fixed the internet. And I'm like, what? That's where I was like, okay, maybe that's a blind spot. And then I went on. I forgot the other thing. There was something else. Because I mentioned this in the chat group, but I don't remember what it is at the time, or right now. But this for me was strike three, and I'm like, well, I presented you with a case. I've talked about how this is more plausible than your current assessment, and you still hold on to your original assessment. And yet you claim to be open to the truth. Those two things are at opposition for me. It's like, okay, if you were willing to change your mind when presented with new evidence, you're presented with new evidence, you don't change your mind at all. What does that say about you? And I'm saying this, so this for me was the third time, and I'm like, I guess I have to remember what was the other thing that happened.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on it at the moment. So there was another thing that was like, well, that seems a bit off. Yeah, usually really rational, but this seems not rational at all. And when confronted with it, didn't do anything about it. So but yeah, I was making the case is like, okay, somebody could make claims about you and your past, and you're willing to deal with people with a known bad reputation. Your willingness to do this, you go after and attack these people based on their viewpoints, and you don't, when people try to criticize you, whatever, you downplay it, and that's what. So I was making a devil's advocate claim against him. Like, yeah, somebody could eat from the outside looking in, could claim that you were insincere, claim that you were just doing everything for political gain, claiming that you were just saying what you needed to say in order to carve out your niche on the internet. I was like, what? Yeah, someone from the outside looking in could make those claims, and you would dismiss those claims, which he did. And I'm like, that's the entire point. How is somebody on the outside looking in supposed to be able to make claims about you and what you actually believe and actually know if they don't know you personally? They aren't you. The only way to prove them wrong is to be consistent, which I think Candace has done more than my 2 cents as far as the consistency area goes. So that, yeah, man, sorry, that's 20 something minutes on this ISO and all that. So the idea that I want to talk about, and I want to get off of my 2 cents, because again, he's not here to defend himself, although I do want to say that he had a chance to, and from our interaction with each other, I don't think he did a very good job, and I think he's in an intellectual blind spot when it comes to this particular area, and that has me looking at myself. Okay, where are my intellectual blind spots? What am I not seeing? What do I refuse to accept even when presented with evidence to the contrary? Where are the areas where I need to solve? Because it's the idea of you have this personal perception of yourself, and I've got a perception of myself where I value the truth at all costs. If I don't like somebody, and this has been kind of littered throughout this entire stream so far, because I talked about the guy from Daily Wire misrepresenting what Nancy Pelosi said. And I was like, that was an attack on AOC. And yet you're presenting it as if she was bad-mouthing AOC. If anything, she was unwittingly acknowledging that the only reason Democrats succeed is because they've got these stronghold areas. And as soon as they lose those, they lose all of their political sway. That might be something she didn't think was all that much of an admission, but seems pretty basic that, yeah, people are not voting based on policies. They're voting based on the Democrat name.
Yeah.
That's something that can be criticized. And yet his version of it, in this Ryan dude's version of it.
See that bearded guy?
No, I don't think so. Ryan something.
I can't remember his name.
No, there's Jeremy Boring and Matt Walsh, which are most of the time they're good. Ryan something. Sandoval?
Saavedra?
Saavedra, yeah, that's the guy.
I just googled.
But yeah,
Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan Saavedra.
Anything from him?
He misrepresented. Yeah, so yeah, a reporter at Real Daily Wire, but he misrepresented what Nancy Pelosi was saying. I'm like, yeah, I don't like Nancy Pelosi. I don't like AOC. But what you're doing right there is a misrepresentation of what she actually said. I don't like the opposition, but we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard of truth, because if this was a politician, or if this was some kind of left-wing media reporting about Donald Trump and Republican politicians, and they made the same claim, you would be on there saying how they were misrepresenting what was actually said. And yet here you are doing it against members of the DNC just because you don't like that. You're misrepresenting what they actually said. There's enough to criticize about what they actually said. You don't need to misrepresent this stuff. There's enough criticism of the stupidity on display. You don't need that. So I hopefully I am fitting with my view of myself, and that I do hold the truth as the standard, which is why I'm willing to cut relationships with people. I'm like, well, I've given you the truth. I've given you a different way of viewing things. I've provided all the evidence I have as to why I think this. Now, if it was merely an opinion-based thing, I could understand a disagreement. But when you're objectively refusing to acknowledge reality, then yeah, that's when I cut ties with somebody. And I'm like, well, there's enough evidence here that I presented. I presented myself in the most factually and objective way possible that I know how. And you're pretending as if what I've stated is opinion. And I'm like, no, that's not opinion. That is fact. That is objective based on the evidence given. There are logical conclusions you can arrive at from evidence that they're logical conclusions, so they're not opinion based. Like, opinion is based on speculation. You're like, yeah, it's my opinion, it's my speculation that the fire in Notre Dame was deliberate. It's my opinion that the Las Vegas shooter was an arms dealer who had ties to intelligence agencies in the U.S. That's my opinion. I can't prove that. There's evidence that I could claim supports that, but I'm making logical leaps in order to reach that. Other things that I've talked about, there are no logical leaps. There's clear evidence making that the only possible explanation for some of these things that I've discussed on this channel. And when somebody refuses to accept those, I cut ties with them.
Well, see, I think that's a bit of you're kind of confusing two issues. So the guy from the Daily Wire, it's not that he was refusing facts. It was simply a misrepresentation.
Yeah.
So, kind of
yeah, okay.
To kind of put things in analogy, let's say you've got Antifa, a group of guys of Antifa, and then on the other side of the street, you got the Proud Boys, right? That ride, yeah. So the Proud Boys come up and they put their hands up and say, "Look, we're just wanting to talk. We're not here to fight. We're a peaceful group." And then one of the Proud Boys picks up a rock and chucks it at an Antifa guy. That guy has violated their stance, their message. He has discredited their entire message.
Yes.
That's the issue you would have with someone being, dishonest, basically, or misrepresentative. It doesn't validate what you view as truth. Now, however, that is still your opinion to be on the Proud Boys side or a conservative side versus being Antifa on an aggressive socialist side. So the stance you have from your side is what your viewpoint is and what you want to hold as the standard. And that's an admirable trait to say, I want to be consistent in what my standards are.
Yes.
But to actually be the guy standing on the side saying, which side is the actual truth? Is there a compromise between the two? Should I be on an extreme here or an extreme here?
Yeah.
You're the guy not involved in any particular party. You're just sitting trying to find the truth. That's a bit different than a misrepresentation. But I understand why you would want to disassociate with people who misrepresent, because as soon as you align themselves, you are guilty by association. And when they misrepresent, you now by association are also misrepresented. It tarnishes your message.
Well, it's okay, so I think you've mixed two different ideas.
It was
so maybe that wasn't quite clear on my end as far as the explanation. So, Ryan, wow, I'm forgetting the last name again. Savardar, dang it. Savadra?
Yeah.
Saavedra? Yeah. So, yes, he misrepresented what was objectively the situation. Okay. And in which case I'm like, yeah, you were holding a double standard because you've gone, like, he's criticized them for misrepresenting facts, and yet here I am, like, what you just did was a misrepresentation of what was actually going on, probably based on your own bias. Yeah, for some reason, I cannot get... Hang on a second. There it goes. There. Should have been up this high. Yeah. All right. Yeah, for some reason, I guess my chair had sunk. Just like, man, I could not get comfortable, and I couldn't figure out why. It's like, oh, because my chair is like really low for no good reason. Dang it. Okay, so yeah, that was one thing. It's like, yeah. So I moved on to a separate topic of talking about myself. So that was completely unrelated to the Ryan. I'm like, okay, I noticed this thing. Am I guilty of these things? Am I guilty of being a hypocrite? Because I've got this perception of myself where I value the truth above all. So much so that I'm willing to cut ties with people that I've been streaming with for almost a year. So much so that I'm willing to, like, just outright abandon someone as soon as I see the veneer crack, as soon as I start to see that, oh, there's a level of dishonesty. There's an area where they're saying one thing and doing another. That's not somebody I want to be around. But am I guilty of the same thing that I criticize these people for? That's the main question, is, does my self-image line up with what I actually do? That's something I've been struggling with for weeks now, is trying to assess, is it me or is it everyone else? And this is something I've posted on my Twitter a while back, is like, okay, if everyone you meet is an asshole, that means you're actually the asshole. But if everyone you meet is a hypocrite, if everyone you meet is an idiot, if everyone you meet is putting emotions at stake and not thinking rationally, wait, at what point do you have to hold up the mirror and point at yourself? It's like, okay, maybe you're the irrational one. Maybe you're the idiot. Maybe you are the one basing things off of emotions. Are you're the linchpin to all of these things? How do you know that you're not the problem? and I don't have a good solution to this. If you, like, stupid people don't know they're stupid, right? So
Yeah.
it's similarly, if you are the problem and you're blaming everybody else, you're like, okay, that person's somebody that does this, so I don't want to associate with them. That person does this, so I don't want to associate with them. That person does this, I don't want to associate with them. You cut all your ties with other people, and like, at what point is it's not them, it's me? That's a pretty terrible conundrum.
I mean, I got a couple different thoughts on that, but it is hard to kind of express or fully explain something like that. I think you have good moral standings, but you are fairly dogmatic in your personal beliefs. So you are searching for truth.
Yeah.
But you also are not pretty much not empathetic at all to opposition. You do argue logic based. But I think you lack empathy to say, where are they coming from? There's a difference between just a flat out stupid person and an uninformed person who sounds stupid. Stupid people just never get it. They don't have the capacity to learn enough to actually be informed. But then there's also uninformed people, which I would argue is most of young liberals or leftists or progressives. They've been indoctrinated through college. They're not idiots. They just appear to be idiots because they bought into this stupid mindset.
Yeah.
But if you cut them off because you believe them stupid without empathizing with their position and saying, where did they come from? I mean, when I was a teenager, I was stupid. I had to grow up and had to learn. I did a lot of dumb stuff when I was younger that now that I'm older and more informed, I can make better decisions and think about it. So depending on who you're talking about, they may still be under a certain assumption or a certain ideology or mindset. And so they come across as sounding ignorant or stupid or contradictory. But that's the fine line where you have to figure, are they as dogmatic as I am and unwilling to discuss and be open so we can either come to an agreement or come to an amicable disagreement? Or are they simply here to argue just to be controversial and because they are stuck in this mindset, at which point then, yeah, cut ties because there's nothing you can do. But if they said something ignorant or dumb, is that just coming from a place of misinformation or they haven't learned enough about the subject to make a declarative statement or an accurate or true statement?
Well, if that was the case, then providing them with the information that they're lacking should be enough to rectify the situation. But when you provide them with the information they're lacking, they refuse to acknowledge that, and they
where the brain kind of rejects it until it finally does sink in. If the subjects are somewhat of a paradigm shift to their views on life, it can initially be hard to grasp. That's why a major transition from being atheist to Christian or Christian to atheist is so difficult. Or going from conservative to progressive or progressive to conservative. Those are paradigm shifts because they're almost polar opposites in the way of thinking.
Yeah, well, that's...
So when you come from an idea of, we'll take helping the poor and needy. I believe that's a good thing, an admirable thing to want, an admirable thing to want to do. However, I believe that's not possible if you don't have the means, and so priority would be to find how to get the means first. Which is why I'm not for social programs, and that's why I'm not for social welfare or socialism in and of itself, is because that tries to put need and want and, lofty feelings in a utopian society above practicality of how are we going to build it? Who's going to build it? Where's the money and where's the technology and ideas going to come from? Somebody's got to work. People have to be free to invent and to innovate, and that does best on a free market society. So while I am empathetic to poor and needy, they are secondary to building a lasting, stronger society, which can then, in turn, have charitable people who understand the blessings they've been given and the wealth that they have to willingly give it out to the poor and needy. But if everybody's poor and needy, that country...
nobody can help anybody else.
So I understand the ideas of why people like socialism, because the concept of helping the poor and needy is a good and lofty goal. And it is something I would like to contribute to and to helping individuals when I can. But if I have no means, I can't help you. If I can't provide you food and a home, what good am I to you? So I need to be able to take care of myself first and help to improve the lives around me, my circumstances, so I can be a benefit to others. So it is a paradigm shift to switch from, I mean, you hear that on the left all the time. Oh, what about the poor and what about the needy and the migrants coming in? And they're just people that are trying to run from, and I get it. They're in a bad situation. But you flood a country with all bad situations, you're going to have a bad country. So that's where I come from, the stance, but I'm still empathetic to the other side. But if you become dogmatic and lose empathy and instead only use logic without being able to play devil's advocate against yourself or put yourself empathetic with where are they coming from? That would be true honesty, because that would be yourself looking in a mirror and saying, okay, here's my stance. This is what I believe. But if I was on the other side, what would I think of myself? And so I have noticed in a lot of your discussions, you are searching for truth, but you are, again, a bit dogmatic and less empathetic to be able to not say that they're right and you're wrong, or to start leaning yourself more towards progressive ideals, but simply to say, where are they coming from?
Yeah, and this is why I'm extremely bad at sales, because I know what works to convince me of things, but I cannot, for some reason, there's a disconnect, and I can't seem to put myself in somebody's shoes and figure out what's important to them, because when I provide them with the actual information, with objective reality, with facts and reasoning that lines up, it's like, well, if this is true and this is true, well, then that's not the case, because that's enough for me, and as far as forming my views. But for other people, they don't base their views on the world along the same lines. And so when I provide them with what would work for me, and they refuse to accept it, then I'm like, well, then you're just an idiot. You're not worth my time. I'm not going to bother trying to reach you because I'm unable to do so. And that's
okay. I can give you kind of an anecdotal story about that. So I've had a little bit of experience in like retails and sales, but part of what has led me towards that line of thinking, with being able to actually empathize with somebody else, even though you think it's not correct, is when I was a debt collector. What a horrible job. I mean, I hate that. That whole industry is garbage. But that was the only job I can get at the time, so I did that for a few months. When I first started off, I was thinking, what's the best rates I can get? What's the most money? And if you don't take this, you're an idiot, because otherwise your debt's just going to keep increasing. So it was along those same lines of thinking. It was just simply math, statistics, get this paid off as fast as possible, get your credit built up. And that's how I did my phone calls, and my collection rates blew. After a while, I started realizing it doesn't matter if I'm trying to save them money, trying to hurry up and get their debt paid off, build up their credit. If I come across as a robot and just spit statistics, it doesn't help. So I started switching my tactic and saying, I'm in the same boat. I lost my job. That's the only reason I'm a debt collector. I don't like working here. But I think I have an opportunity that's going to help you. When you come across as someone that's empathetic and helpful, I ended up, the last month, I was the top collector. I never got a bonus because I quit right before. But people were, because they felt that someone was empathetic with them and sincerely just trying to do their best and help, yeah, they're paying back a debt and it sucks. But at least they found somebody that can empathize. So that's kind of where I started to pick up on that trait, is just facts and statistics work for someone that is purely logical, which seem, logic and empathy are not opposites, but they don't necessarily coexist that well. So it's about, you have to lean one way or the other. And
I would say that they're opposites, but they're not diametrically opposed, as if they're not, like if you have logic, you can't have empathy. They overlap, but they are opposite. they're opposite in concept. Because
I mean, because sometimes taking empathy, you will do something that's illogical, but you just feel it's better to help, even though it's not the best answer.
Yeah, because it would be amazing if somebody was purely logical and empathetical. I don't know, but I don't know if that's possible. And so this is something.
Like I said, all those immigrants coming in, I feel sorry for people that have to grow up in impoverished nations and understand they want a better life.
Yes. But then when I offer them, I was like, well, if you want a better life, this is how you get it. And then they're like, oh, no, we don't want that. We just want free crap. And I'm like, then
logically, the thing
GTFO.
Build the U.S. up to where we can actually go to their country and help their country build up, and they don't have to migrate anywhere.
Yeah, that would be the ideal.
Where we can support countries without going to war or overthrowing a government. We can just be an example, send some money, and have strict rules on how we're going to invest in your country and say, look, you want your people, we have an answer. We did it, or we've done it. Do this. If you can't, we're going to pull our funding, but we want to help you. Then we can help build other countries because we've built our house up. So you have to kind of toss empathy a little bit and work on building the structure solidly before you can be empathetic. So again, yeah, you're right. They're not diametrically opposed. It's just sometimes you have to turn one off or the other.
Yeah.
But I think you're very purely logic driven.
Yeah. And I need to work on the empathy side, and that's something I don't know how to develop. But in the meantime, somebody has actually been showing up in the chat, and I for the first hour or so there was nobody in there, so I didn't. But well, maybe not the first hour. I don't remember when they actually showed up. So there's a couple things being asked in here right now. So is bisexuality still bullcrap? Yes, that's. I don't know why that's a question.
I'm not sure what bullcrap is.
So if a man is a bisexual, he's actually gay. If a woman is bisexual, it just means she's a whore.
I think bisexuals are just people who are more into sexual pleasure rather than building a lasting relationship.
Yes. And so that's one of the things is bisexuals. If you look at the statistics for bisexual men, it's in the high 90s of bisexual men who end up getting in a long-lasting relationship with another man. Bisexual women,
and they're not sure if they come out or that they are gay.
Yeah, so bisexual women, it's like the opposite. It's the majority of them end up when they do get into a long-term relationship, it's usually with a man.
Yeah, so I think it's the thrill and the sexual adrenaline, and it's not bisexuality is not meant for long-lasting relationships. And I know a lot of them are in like multi-partner relationships. A girl will have a boyfriend.
But that's the multi-partner relationships is not long-term sort of thing. It's something that is very temporary. It's not.
It's kind of like a friends with benefits, but now I've got more friends to choose from. Yeah. But it's also just for short-term benefit. Well, I would put that in the bull crap.
So the other thing is S-Man made a rant video about me, according to Brandon Paget. So what? Yeah. I'm not going to respond to his video because I don't care what his opinion is. I've cut ties with him in that group. So, unless that was about Aircraft Sparky, because I see he's apparently in the comments here.
No, it was you. It's got your picture.
Oh, okay.
I was looking up your channel to try and check if your stream was live, and I saw it about a week ago.
So if he's got a rant video about me, I'm not going to respond because I don't care.
I don't know if it's a rant about you or you ranting on something. It's hard to tell from the title. I'll probably check it out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not important enough for me to care. How many doors do you have? Oh, you. Yeah, there's a lot of doors in that room.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then they talk about anarcho-capitalism doesn't work for a civilization. Well,
and that was kind of my point earlier.
Yeah.
So I didn't really posted that, but I like the concept of self-governing smaller communities. But I think once they get to a certain size, there has to be some sort of hierarchical structure.
Well, that's the problem is the hierarchical structure would be a violation of people's natural rights. by
No,
its
no, no.
very
Look at
conception.
the U.S. Constitution, right? Each state was its own smaller community, and they kind of did things their own way. The Constitution was just simply saying, all states, your rights are protected. We all agree to this. These are your rights, and we will never impede upon those.
And look what it turned into. How do you keep it from turning into that?
You cannot. It's a perpetual cycle.
So, yeah. So you're basically the system is you create a government that's designed with a minarchist view where everybody is taking care of themselves. And they all just join a voluntary collective to enforce certain rules. And then over time, that power structure increases, and starts abusing the citizens it was designed to protect.
Yes.
And then you have to tear down the system through violent force or through an economic collapse, and then start all over again.
Yes.
What? That means you're never going to have a stable society.
Correct.
That's just just grin and bear it. So there's no point trying to fix the system. Just acknowledge that it's going to be in cycles, and then deal with it when it gets too big, and hope that you can overcome it instead of it becoming a tyrannical Nazi-esque regime.
Well, okay,
because that's also a possibility given the current state of.
So again, think about it this way, right? Anarcho-capitalism, at least the way that most people see that as becoming a reality, is to break down a current government. Basically, the country would collapse, and smaller communities would just build themselves up in kind of their own isolated bubbles. It would have to start small.
Yeah.
It's not just country disappears and the next day, hey, we're all anarcho-capitalists and we all agree. That's not going to happen.
No, that's not even anarcho-capitalists think that. Anybody who criticizes anarcho-capitalism thinks that that's what we think.
Yeah, but it'll be like-minded people that kind of join together in communities, and hey, you can be my neighbor as long as you're not shooting me and taking my stuff. I'll give you the same courtesy. I can do this for you if you can do this for me. You got vegetables and crops. I got cows. Let's trade. It's a mutual agreement, smaller communities. But as those become stabilized, more and more people will join in. Initially, they will be like-minded, which is what we had here in the United States. It was predominantly Protestant.
Even so I'm not seeing where the issue comes in here. If that just continues,
because as the country got bigger, they needed an overall structure.
Why does that suddenly become necessary?
Because
what they're doing without that structure is already everything's voluntary. Everybody's joining and collaborating together of their own accord. Anybody can join at any time that they choose. Anybody can leave at any time that they choose.
Why did we need the United States then?
We didn't.
Then why did we fight Britain?
We needed to overthrow Britain. We did not need to form the United States.
If we did not unify into a nation, Britain would have come back a couple years later once they got their finances and their military built back up, and we're back at it again because we're their colonies and we're all like smaller anthills instead of being a unified body. This was exactly why the Civil War was fought, is to get rid of slavery because half of the country didn't want it, but also because Abraham Lincoln understood if we split, we become subject to attack from other foreign entities that say they're divided, now we conquer. This is
okay, but the idea,
because there are larger entities and bodies out there that will decimate us if we are smaller communities, it became a necessity to combine together. But that's why they wrote the Constitution to say we're still going to stick with the core values that everybody here has these rights, and we will protect these rights and we will not impede. And your state can decide what it wants to do. And your state, unfortunately, as soon as any sort of hierarchical structure is built, people will look to misuse and bloat it and build it and make that stronger so they can.
You can't stop that from happening. And so, but it sounds like people are already joining together and forming voluntary organizations where anybody can leave and enter as they see fit. But then you put this structure in place called a government where, okay, now there are specific rules and you're part of it no matter what you want. You can't leave of your own accord. You have to stay in it.
Well, okay, let me put a smaller concept out there, right? You got a smaller community. Let's say they're all, a religious community. They're kind of a Christian community. One guy comes in and wants to start a whorehouse.
Okay.
Can he?
Yeah, why not?
Because the rest of the community doesn't want it.
It doesn't matter. It's not their stuff.
Then he's not going to fit in with the rest of the community.
Then he's ostracized from the community.
So they have already built their hierarchical system. It already exists.
What?
They had banded together and say, we will not allow.
It's freedom of association.
They had banded together and say, we're not going to allow a nudie bar in our town.
Well, then why is it their town and not the town? So, okay, so they're claiming full ownership of the town that the other person resides in.
No, I'm saying that 99% would have said, we don't want this here. The one guy
they don't get a say because it's his property. It's his stuff. It's they're claiming ownership of what he has. That's the problem. That our town, you don't own the town. You own your house in that neighborhood. You don't own the whole town.
Here's where you're getting a little dogmatic. You're not listening. If 99% of the town has agreed we don't want a nudie bar here,
then who cares?
Then they will take into account that they do not want this guy here, and they will kick him out. They will make his life miserable to where he flees. They have already built a hierarchical structure. They already have a unison mindset on this topic.
Okay, so the guy builds a nudie bar and doesn't get any business, and he goes out of business, and it goes away.
Because the rest of them are like-minded on this subject, therefore that hierarchy already exists on what certain things can or will work.
Okay, so why do they need to institute a structure that prevents him from opening it in the first place? If it's going to fail and collapse out of its own accord.
But if they all get together and say, we agree, we don't want this here, they have now created a hierarchy structure.
And they've claimed ownership over things that they don't own.
That's what's naturally going to happen. That's why governments actually grow out of nothing.
Because people start by violating the principles of property ownership. They claim up property ownership over things that they don't actually own.
Yeah, but let's say you're opposed to a nudie bar and a guy builds one right next to your house. Has he violated any of your rights?
No.
So now he is forced to get out of there because you don't want that nudie bar near your children. So it's either he leaves or you leave.
Yeah. It's voluntary association.
Therefore, he has stripped you of your rights to your property.
Wait, no, he hasn't. How would that strip me of my rights? I don't have the right to not live next to a nudie bar. That's not a right.
But you have the right to protect your children from things you
think. So if I want to protect them, I do what is necessary to protect them, and I move away.
And this is where your mindset does not work in real life. Nobody thinks like that. Well, very few people.
Well, that's morally correct.
We'll get together, but there is going to be that occasional people that try to introduce something into that community that the majority of the community doesn't want. So therefore, they will band together and say, this is not going to happen here.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is they band together and say, you don't get to exercise your freedom of will or your freedom of movement or your freedom of association. We're going to strip you of that, even though you have violated none of our rights. That's the problem.
That's society. That's how it works on the entire planet. So that's why ANCAP doesn't work. It's a good theory, but that's why I think it's along those utopian lines of socialism. There are things in socialism that sound great, taking care of all the needy, and everybody gets to say so.
Okay.
But
so it won't work because people violate rights, therefore you can never have rights not being violated.
No, you're taking an
Then what's the point of rights?
You're taking an extreme.
No, people will group together to violate an individual's rights. So therefore we shouldn't have what is the purpose of rights if people are going to unite together to violate one individual's rights?
That's a silly question.
No, it's not.
Yes.
What is the purpose of having rights recognized whatsoever as long as they're, oh, well, you have rights until you piss off the group, and then you no longer have rights?
Yes. That's the way things just are. But we still have rights.
Then you don't have inalienable rights. You don't have rights to begin with. You have privileges. You have whatever society grants you as a privilege. You do not have rights. You have privileges.
They are rights.
No, they're not rights if they can be taken away by the vote of the majority.
Yes, that's the mob.
Then they're not rights.
They are rights.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed with certain unalienable rights, including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you don't have those that are unalienable, they are not rights. They are privileges granted to you by the ruling structure.
let me flip your logic. Everyone has a right to life.
No.
I can
not if you are the person. Hey, not if you're the person running the nudie house and you refuse to move and you refuse to. They lock you inside and burn it down. Then you don't have the right to life as long as you're doing something the community disapproves of.
Okay, give me two seconds here. Everybody has a right to life. That's just, we exist, therefore that is our right to exist.
Unless you disagree.
However, if I'm a criminal and I don't care about your rights, I don't take that into my perspective. I shoot you because I want something you have. I have violated your right to life. Does that mean everybody in the world just says, well, he shot someone, none of us have right to life?
No, because it's okay. So flip it on the other way. Instead of it being one person says, hey, you all have the right to life. And 99 say, no, you don't. And they kill the one. That's what you're claiming. That's different from one person.
It progresses. That's how Nazis came into existence. That's why they felt they had the right to end Jewish life, even though they didn't. It's just as something that pops up. People will group together and eventually
violate people's rights. So therefore, rights are a myth.
Why they drafted the Constitution and why America has become a beacon of.
There are no rights. According to, if your explanation of reality is correct, there are no such thing as natural rights.
No. Why are you such an absolutist?
Based on your own logic. Your rights do not exist if the majority of the group says you don't have them.
If 99 people said murder is okay, and one guy said, no, I don't agree, that doesn't matter. Murder's still wrong because people have a right to life. It just means the majority have changed their mind.
But because the 99 will kill the one, right? So the one guy dies. So he didn't have the right to life.
He does have the right to life. His right was violated. This is the natural tendency as groups get larger.
No, because the 99 who remain say that you don't have the right to life.
So?
No, but so the 99 kill the one, and now 99 people say nobody has the right to life.
And then by an absolutist version, they should all kill themselves because none of them have the right to live. I'm saying people do have the right to live, but rights are violated.
Okay. When they're violated by the majority, that's a government. So when they're violated by the majority, you are saying governments will always exist because people need their rights violated.
No, because they tend to group together, and then they get into a hive thing. This is why slavery existed in the United States ever. Because there was a large enough group of people that said, yeah, this is still fine. And it used to be a legal thing. It used to be considered.
It used to be legal, so that's again all government. At what point?
My point is governments will spring up. And initially they're meant to protect rights, but those will always get overridden over time. That's why ANCAP can't exist as just ANCAP and stay there. Because as people start to group together.
So as people violate rights, you have to institute governments that violate people's rights in order to protect people's rights.
Governments always violate rights.
You violate rights in order to protect rights. That's fucking retarded.
Yeah. I mean, look at abortion laws, right? If you're under the assumption that all life has the right to exist, that is a natural right. And yet our government has already stated, no, someone has the right to choose that life. It used to not be that way, but now a majority of the population is in agreement with that. Minds change. And usually for the worse as societies get larger, which is why I think once societies get to a certain point, they begin to deteriorate from within. That's why I say it's a perpetual cycle, but it is still not a struggle that's not worth fighting. Because I do
it's not worth fighting.
I do believe there are rights, but eventually people will start to violate rights until society collapses and then it has to start over. This seems to be a perpetual cycle throughout the history of mankind.
And it's unavoidable. There's no way to break this cycle.
Hierarchy, it becomes corruptible.
Unless it's a meritocracy hierarchy, which is voluntary.
Yes, it won't always.
But you're saying as soon as there's a group of people, they will always make things involuntary.
Yeah. Taxes are now involuntary, even though
I understand that. Holy fuck, man. Okay, so if you get 10 people who all agree, hey, we're not going to do anything that isn't voluntary. We are not going to use force. We all agree by these terms. As soon as you add an 11th person, for some reason, it's large enough now where the entire group is going to start violating their core beliefs and their core tenets just because it's large enough. Well, as soon as, okay, maybe not 11. Maybe the magic number is 20 people. Maybe the magic number is 100 people. Maybe the magic number is 200 people. At some point, it goes from having 100 people thinking, oh, we follow a system where nobody's life rights can be violated, regardless of if the group disagrees or if the individual disagrees. Everybody's rights should be protected at all costs. We are now 300 individuals who all believe this. 301, oh, holy shit, we need a government. What point of a society, as far as large enough, being increased in size, at what point along this chain of how large a society is, do we suddenly require a structure when it's built up on the principle of, oh, everything's been voluntary up until this point, and then at some point we reach a point where there's too many people in a society for this to continue?
Whenever there's a disagreement on something.
So your argument against this is that it's not scalable. But yeah. How is it not scalable? That's the problem. You're saying it's not scalable because as soon as we get large enough groups of people,
because the only way it would be scalable is that everybody on the planet thought the same way, and they don't.
No, that's fucking A, man.
What?
So in order to, you're saying if everybody thought the way now, immediately, everybody thinks like we flick a magic button and everybody thinks exactly the same, as opposed to having a society where, hey, you're only allowed in this society if you think this way. And we keep expanding the society to include people who think this way.
Because, okay, when people disagree on things, there has to be an arbiter, someone to settle the disagreement.
And that's all. Walter Block wrote about this. David Friedman wrote about this.
So the only way society
I think Hans Hoppe writes about this as well.
I understand.
Agreements can be resolved through arbitration voluntarily.
Yes. But
this is not something you need a fucking government that is going to violate people's rights. At no point is violating people's rights required for this system to continually to scale upwards.
It's not that it's required, it just evolves.
Then people don't actually believe in what they claim to believe.
I'll put this into perspective, okay? We'll just take a small community, okay? They're starting to do their own trade. Hey, I'll trade you for this. I'll trade you for that.
Yeah.
It's a fair exchange. It's a free market. It's the way ANCAP's supposed to. And they're all agree, hey, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Hey, how do you do, neighbor? Right? One of your neighbors does something that makes you angry. So for this guy, you're growing wheat and vegetables. And you're like, yeah, I'll trade you for that motorcycle. I'll give you food for the next year. You give me that motorcycle. Great, fair trade. This guy comes up and you're like, man, I don't like him. I'll give you half a pound of wheat, but it's going to cost you 2 cars. That guy gets pissed off, but you're the only one who provides wheat. Now you have a disagreement.
Okay.
Right?
You're the only person who provides wheat. Yep. Because there's no competition.
It's a small community. I'm just starting off small. I'm just saying there's going to be a disagreement.
In which case, what's preventing him from going outside of that community to fulfill his wheat needs?
Then he can do that. But when societies get larger, things are going to be equalized.
No, you just keep falling behind this argument that, well, once they hit a certain large group size, then this solution no longer becomes scalable.
Yes, because people tend to lean towards a hierarchy.
They tend to lean towards a hierarchy because they've been raised their entire lives to adhere to a hierarchy.
Even in a family structure, there's hierarchy. How do you not have hierarchy?
But you have hierarchy within a family structure because it's based on meritocracy. It's not. You can leave a family. I have done that with our family.
Can a 7-year-old Can a 7-year-old leave their family? Technically, sure, but they're probably not going to survive very long.
Probably not. What does that have to do with this?
Hierarchy till they become independent.
Okay, So, ugh. So families aren't infinitely scalable because as soon as they reach a certain size, then the family starts killing each other and starts raping each other and starts stealing from each other. Yeah. So as soon as our family should stop growing, because as soon as
I didn't say any of that.
It's the same. Well, hey, it's a hierarchy structure. As soon as it reaches a certain size, somebody's rights are going to be violated.
At some point, not within a family unit. I mean, it could be.
Why not within a family? Because it's a hierarchy system.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable because it's not infinitely scalable. So the larger a family grows, the more there is going to be violations of people's rights. It's just unavoidable. And it's not going to be an individual violating the rights of another individual within that family. It's going to be the entire family forming some larger structure and then violating the rights of an individual member of said family. Because it's not infinitely scalable, apparently.
You seem a bit offended without contemplating.
No, I am attacking your argument because your argument is baseless. Your argument is simply that once things become too large, they have to have a government in order to keep them.
Okay, let's take any sport or activity or game as an example. Can those exist without rules?
No, the rules exist, but you can have unorganized sports.
Yeah, but eventually those unorganized sports build some sort of basis or rule to make it what it is, to define what it is the activity is. Certain interactions have to have a defined set of understanding or rules. It just...
The rules, yes. Rulers, no. Holy fuck, man. How many times have I talked about this on these streams? You can have a fucking unorganized game where you still follow. You can play baseball because we did this as kids. There were no coaches. There were no referees. We played baseball. We played football. We still followed the fucking rules of playing football. As we added more kids to the group, we suddenly didn't require the NFL to come in and draw lines on a field and tell us exactly how to play. We didn't. Once we hit 100 kids, rather than splitting up and having two separate games, no, we didn't. We didn't have to do that. No, we had to call in some adult authority to tell us how to play fucking football because we got too large. I don't think we ever had a game that was actually 100 kids, but I do remember where we had to split up and have two separate groups playing different games because we couldn't fit all in the same field. Unorganized, man. Unorganized. It's.
And I understand that. But let's say that group grows to a couple of thousand kids that all want to play football. They can't all play on the fields at the same time. Somebody's going to have to organize and say, okay,
yeah,
your team here, your team here, your team here, your team here, your four are playing. Once you guys are done, this team, this team, this team. So without some sort of unifying person or entity or decision, it's going to be chaos and no one's going to get to play.
And at what point in that entire structure does somebody not get to play? And it's like, no, we're too big. You don't get to play at all. That's what government does.
It's not your turn. Your team is next. You sit over there. It's their turn.
That's fine. That's acceptable. That's within the rules of the game and reality.
Then they don't play when they want to. It's not free. It's not just...
Okay, at what point does not getting to play when you want to equate to being put in prison for not paying your bill? At what point is that for not put in prison for not paying taxes? At what point is that saying, oh, well, everybody else can say whatever they want, but you have the wrong opinion, so you go directly to jail? Everybody else can own everything they want, but the government has a problem with you, so we're going to take your stuff and put you in jail.
I'm not advocating.
At what point in your analogy of talking about sports, you're like, yes, there's a structure involved. There's order as opposed to pure chaos.
Yes.
At what point is that system violating anybody's rights? And yet you're saying government is required once something gets to a large enough scale, and it has to violate people's rights. The very institution of government violates people's rights.
I'm not saying that's the purpose. I'm not for that. I'm saying
it's by its very existence, somebody has to have the authority to violate people's rights by its very existence.
And we have seen that in every government ever.
Yes.
I'm just saying, once a government exists, whether or not they want to head in that direction, it eventually does.
No, it starts off that way. It starts off with the wow.
So if you've got a small community and you find there's a serial killer, you decide to put him in prison, isolate him from everyone else. Have you violated his right to freedom?
Yes, but then again, he started off by being a serial killer. He was the original violator. That's
and
the
he
problem.
made you have to violate his right to freedom because he endangered other people's right to life.
No, he started by violating, which is why you can.
Yes.
Yes. The government starts off not objecting or not violating people who violate first. They start off by having the monopoly on force. They have restricted other people of their rights in order to be the sole arbitrary authority on force.
My point is, I would like an ANCAP society. I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's utopian and therefore won't work. I don't want a centralized government. I'm just saying those seem to be inevitable. And it's not that people don't have rights. It's that because people have the tendency to stick to hierarchies and group together, they naturally form and slowly grow in power.
Hierarchies are allowed and actually built into the anarcho-capitalist structure. The people have written books that, like, hierarchies exist. There is no requirement to remove hierarchies within an anarcho-capitalist society.
And I would argue that all early mankind was ANCAP. All of the early tribes. What happened to them?
Yeah, sure. They were ANCAP before capitalism existed. Okay.
They had to trade.
No, there might have been trade and all of that, but there's very much societies where the strongest person gets to dictate what people do.
And why did that happen?
Because they didn't care about anarcho-capitalist principles. So it's might makes right. That's been the story of history. And that's the story of, the majority might makes right. Hey, doesn't matter that we're violating your rights. It doesn't matter that your whorehouse that you set up doesn't violate any of our rights. Might makes right. There's more of us. We win. That's the story of history. And you're saying that anarcho-capitalist societies existed back then when might makes right has been the rule, the normal rule.
I'm saying they would have started out as smaller groups that understand they need each other to survive. Therefore, this would require some to go out hunting, some to forage for vegetation, others to take care of the children. So they would just work together to survive. It was a survival game. But eventually, they would have a chief or they would have a leader. Probably it started off earlier with somebody who was a little smarter or more capable, and they thought this would be a good guy to kind of lead us to make sure we do survive. A family could almost be an ANCAP, but with a proper hierarchy structure.
Yeah.
But that's a family. Once multiple families join together, they're going to have a separate hierarchy structure. So I'm sure, and I understand ANCAP can have hierarchy without a government. I get that.
Yes.
Because
as soon as that hierarchy violates somebody's rights, that's when it becomes a government.
Even if you start off with that premise and build it up, it is inevitability that some sort of government entity will arise. Not that I want it to, not that I think those are ever a good thing. I'm very much as small a government entity as possible, but there are just going to be issues that need to be governed or have rules set that necessarily aren't violating your rights, but need a central authority to state, here are the rules for this aspect of life. You're killing all the buffalo and they're disappearing. We need to limit how many buffalo. It wouldn't just be natural. One guy's going to say, I don't care. I'm hungry. And he has the right to go out and get food.
Wait, how are you killing buffalo that you don't own? These are not natural resources.
We don't own wild animals.
What?
We don't own wild animals. But if Indian tribes go out to buffalo, right?
That's the tragedy of the commons. It's already been resolved in anarcho-capitalist philosophy.
How? Okay, explain that. Maybe I don't understand that concept.
because everybody claims ownership of something. So if there is a herd of buffalo or whatever, then you kill one, sure, that's your property, and you go around killing all of them. Well, at some point, somebody's going to claim the land that the buffalo are on, and then you no longer get, and going on that land and killing more buffalo is going to violate their property rights to own that land. Somebody is going to domesticate those buffalo and start a farm going on their property and killing those buffalo. Well, you just violated their ownership rights. That's how you solve the tragedy of the commons, is claiming the land that they are on by cultivating it.
So how would you prevent the guy from going and killing your buffalo?
Either defending it yourself, or
you have the right to end his life.
Yes.
So then that is a violation of his right to life.
No.
That's because he violated your private property.
Oh, right. Dude.
I'm asking. This is not.
No, we've talked about this. So, like, this has already been discussed at length in different streams.
So, yes, you own.
When you violate somebody else's rights, you lose your own rights. That's the only way a system like this can work.
So, what if you build?
If you can go around killing people and taking anything that you want, then, and they have no way of retaliating with you against you without being the bad actor, then no society can have a recognition of any rights. The very point of a right is when one right is violated, the violator no longer has their rights. This is why you can imprison someone who violated somebody else's rights. This is why if somebody is in the process of trying to rape another individual, you can kill that person and not be the aggressor, and you are not the morally incorrect actor. It's the person who aggressed. It's the non-aggression principle. Is the person who does the aggressing, the initiator of the act, of the violation. That's the bad guy. You can retaliate against him without being a bad guy yourself.
And all of this I understand. I am simply stating ANCAP is a good idea, but it is utopian and not, it would never fully, it might function for a while, but will grow into some sort of government entity.
So the solution is to have a government to start with.
The solution would be to have an ANCAP society, if you can get there, let it grow, and once you get to a point where a government does start to be established, try and limit it as much as possible, which is kind of what happened with the U.S.
No. Because we had states to begin with, and we had the Continental Congress, and then we had the adoption of the Constitution.
Why did it keep growing? Why did the states exist? They started off as just small colonies.
Yeah, had they just stuck with that format, we would have been fine. We were fine with no real central structure for decades.
Why did they? Why didn't those, like the Pilgrims, right? They're just kind of Christian refugees came over.
Okay, and how many anarcho-capitalists were spouting their ideas and their philosophies at the time? The answer is 0.
So basically, none of them were actually ANCAP. None of the societies were, and they've never done it correctly, even if they were a.
So the philosophers at the time were telling them the best structure for a society would be a republic.
I'm just saying that sounds very similar to the socialist argument. It's never been done right before.
Okay.
So
there are examples throughout history of anarcho-capitalist society coming to an existence and then murdering over 100 million people within the last century.
I didn't say they're the same. I said they're opposites, but they're still utopian.
Okay. Socialism has been tried, and millions of people have died as a result of it. Has anarcho-capitalism, as there a proof of it being introduced or being started and having the exact opposite effect of what it claims that would occur?
I don't know. I would think
no.
Earlier
the answer is no.
Groups.
There are isolated pockets of anarcho-capitalist societies that we can point to, like, see, here's an example of something like this working. Here's an example of something like this. It's never been the full picture as far as we can tell. And when they were working, they didn't result in mass genocide or mass starvation.
But I could also point to small communes like a monk commune where they all get along, but that's more along the socialist lines.
So
everybody owns production and it's all shared evenly because they have that. Yeah. But beyond that, then it becomes deadly. We've had that discussion.
So anarcho-capitalists beyond a certain point would become deadly. for no apparent reason.
I don't know. From what
I don't know either.
Out of humanity and societies that have come before us, people tend to lead towards hierarchy, and hierarchy tends to lead towards some sort of centralized ruling entity. Even if it starts off as a good intention,
I
think it's an inevitable evolution of a society that's growing.
Yeah. So, and Stefan Manlu has said this is like, okay, so while this may fail, it's a bit like saying, well, if a person has cancer and cancer seems to be inevitable, chemo has a potential of eradicating the cancer, but then the cancer is going to come back. So don't bother getting chemo in the first place. Just let the cancer stay and fester.
At any point did I ever said don't try?
No. Yeah, that's well, if you said it's inevitable, so then why try? If it's always going to turn into government, why try to eradicate the cancer that is government? If it's always just going to come back, why even try with the chemo? If it's an effort that is doomed to fail and is going to result in the cycle repeating no matter what, why bother with that unnecessary step?
Because it could intermittently allow for a peaceful form of life, at least for a generation or two, or a group of people.
Or it could result in mass death, and it could be a worse solution. Right? The devil you know is better than the, right? As it's better to dance with the devil you know than the devil you don't.
I mean, that could be said about Christianity. According to Revelations, there's going to be an end time where Christians are going to be persecuted, almost wiped out, and most of the world is going to be anti-Christian and be led by an antichrist. Yeah. That's supposed to be inevitable, so why try? Why go talk to people?
What? No, you don't try to stave off the end of the world, because that's inevitable. At what point does any of that mean you don't try to witness to somebody?
Because most of the world is not going to be.
Yeah, but you don't know who is who.
Yeah. So I never said don't try, ANCAP. I don't know how you would even start. I just said I think eventually it's not going to work. Doesn't mean don't try.
All right, I don't.
Perpetual cycle, then going towards that route would at least bring a time of peace. So continue to pursue. Just because something's inevitable doesn't mean work towards something better. I don't view it as a waste of time. That's your perspective.
Yeah. So if the desired result is not achieved by doing the thing, then why do the thing? That's kind of the definition of insanity, is like, okay, well, the proposed solution to an ongoing perpetual cycle, if that will just lead to the ongoing perpetual cycle, then the proposed solution is not something worth pursuing, and we need to pursue some other idea of possibly breaking the cycle.
And I will admit I could be completely wrong on this, and just starting an ANCAP society could work. To me, it seems utopian, and I don't believe utopia can be achieved here on Earth, just because of diversity of thought and the way people are. There is no homogenous one world group of people. I don't see that as happening. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't always strive for a better type of society. So at some point, 50, 100, 200, 2,000 years in the future, maybe we are at a point where the world is mostly homogenous. There's been so much interbreeding between different races and ethnicities, and the world has become globalized that now it's a possibility.
Well, I think the first thing you said, it was a bit of a Freudian slip, but I think that may be more the possibility than not with Ilhan Omar and her ilk becoming the dominant force.
Yeah. So I'm not arguing against your viewpoint, and I understand where you're coming from. I'm just saying, from my perspective, what I have seen so far, it seems inevitable that societies grow into a body controlling or organizing.
And maybe so
change, but that's the way I see it. Doesn't mean it's not worth doing.
And we got way off topic because of this.
Yeah, sorry.
But man, I think this kind of demonstrates what I was saying earlier. It's like, yeah, I haven't. I am dogmatic in some of these beliefs, although I think they're dogmatic because they're founded on the truth.
You've got logic, and logic makes sense, but unfortunately, you're dealing with human beings, which don't always follow logic.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to follow patterns of humanity, which always seem to come into some sort of ruling body or ruling class.
All right.
I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I don't think there should be a ruling class or body. I don't want it. So I like the idea of ANCAP. I just don't think it's achievable. That's why I say it's difficult, but I could be wrong about that. It might be sometime way in the future if ANCAP is given a fair start, and then I'll say, oh, maybe it is achievable. It's just my perspective.
Yeah.
So it sounds great, but again, it's something that sounds great on paper. I just don't know if it's achievable.
Don't know either, but I'm not
now on the
seeing how it could fail given if it's implemented correctly. I don't see how it could fail.
Again, I would argue the socialist side of that. However, we have plenty of example of where it does fail. And I don't agree with socialism at all because it has been tried multiple times.
And I get that, but that's because socialism is fundamentally flawed based on its premise. It's not.
It doesn't bring society up. It drags it down to the bottom denominator.
Yes.
So I understand that. But the idea of everyone being equal is still a utopian idea. ANCAP isn't everyone's equal. It's a meritocracy, but everyone has equal rights to do whatever. Your rights are the same as everyone's and can never be violated. If they are, your rights are now null and void. So I get that concept. I just think given society or the globe and humanity, as we've seen progressing over the last few thousand years, the eventuality is they come to some sort of ruling entity.
Yeah.
It always seems to happen as they become larger.
Okay. So I think I'm done with that topic for now. And it's already 11:30. And the other area I wanted to discuss is, so there's your perception of yourself, and then there's other people's perception of you. And hopefully my perception of myself is not way off on, and that's what I was hopefully trying to assess here. But I think more than likely my view of myself is incorrect with reality. I like to think of myself as logical and dedicated to the truth, but more than likely I'm emotional and dogmatic in my views. And while I spout and claims that I am devoted to the truth and logic and objective reality, I think based on this conversation, I think I've actually...
I mean, I think it's still your pursuit. It's just...
It's pursuit, but I'm bad at it.
Once you believe you have logically found this connection and to you it logically makes sense, it's
but it's
a subjective logic.
Subjective logic is not logic at all. So I think the solution or the answer to that conundrum or whatever is, while my pursuit may be truth, I'm bad at it, which makes me wonder, okay, this is something I've raised previously. Is there a purpose behind this YouTube channel? And my Twitter is like, because I've got this perception of myself as far as what I'm capable of and what I understand as truth, but based on other people's interactions with me.
Then why not still have your channel be the pursuit of truth, but also kind of a self-enlightenment channel? Because without
that was the purpose of it, but I've been doing this for what, 2 years?
Yeah,
I haven't made any progress, and I'm guessing that's because I'm bad at this.
Yeah, the tendency to isolate people. Like, I know you got off real bad with Cult of Ham. You're like complete opposite ideals, and you don't like the way he argues with circular logic, and you got super frustrated and stuff. And then I only did the one stream with him, and we opposed on most ideas, but we were still amicable by the end of the conversation. So you don't necessarily have to agree with everybody on the stream, but it's still keep your pursuit of trying to find truth, but understand it's developing. And the only way you are going to fit outside of your own perception of yourself is through interaction and allowing other viewpoints other than your own. So you may not like it, you may not agree with it, but that's how you find out who you are when you interact with other people. Simply just disassociating yourself. Now I understand disassociating yourself with a criminal, with a murderer or a rapist or a child molester or a bank robber. Just flat out crimes. So I don't want to associate with people who dox because I think that's just deplorable. That is the pure intent to go out and harm other individuals while saying, my hands are clean. I just gave their name and address and phone number. It's despicable. So I can understand the doxing perspective. But if somebody does associate with a doxer, they may not necessarily hold that viewpoint, but it doesn't necessarily invalidate the rest of their conversation.
It kind of does when they outright criticize people for doxing.
Well, then you can talk with them and say,
hey. So then it's like, oh, it's bad when other people dox, but when it's people that I like who dox, that's fine. That's just them.
Yeah, then you can just point out the hypocrisy, but guilty by association or...
But I mean, that's kind of the point I made about Bering, is Bering was criticizing someone for doxing, and then goes and makes a video with a guy who is notorious on the internet for doxing people. That was the entire, it was like, yeah, that's pointing out the hypocrisy, and made multiple streams about this week. And DarkCon and Bering and I were on a stream together where we discussed this in person. I was like, yeah, I actually got to confront him directly on this. And I walked away as like, man, that guy's a big hypocrite. He doesn't, yeah, it's only bad when somebody doxes him. But it's perfectly fine when somebody else doxes other people. Yeah, that's an inconsistent view, and that's. But again, I
guess another perspective would be: do you think Trump's a good guy? Personally, his rhetoric and he has done some shady stuff.
A good guy, as in would I want to hang out with him? No.
No, I mean,
good guy, as in would I want him in my consider him like my pool of friends or brain trust or something like that? No. Good for the country, as in, yeah, he's probably the only good presidential candidate we've had in the past 2 decades. Yeah, I think he's the only president who's been doing more good than harm in that position of office.
So my point is, he's done some shady stuff. He's, sleeping with porn stars and trying to pay him off, stuff that's just kind of looked down on or frowned.
I'd say that the adultery part is more the concern there.
That's his personal whatever, and his rhetoric online. I wish we quit.
Made a promise to his wife that he broke in order to sleep with a whore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's plenty of things I don't like about him. However, his policies definitely seem the right way for the country. So I will support his policies, and as long as he's doing his job correctly as president, I'll support him in the role of president. But I'll be there to point out when he's messing something up or screwing something up, and to call him out on it. I think that's the appropriate way. So unless somebody is completely diametrically opposed to your viewpoints, your lifestyle, and things you just cannot tolerate, you're going to have to understand people do things you don't like or don't agree with.
But then I don't have to associate with them if they do that.
Just point out where they're wrong. Say, hey, on this area, I agree, but on this area, I think you're hypocritical.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to break off the conversation. I think Ham was actually a lot of fun to talk to just because he said some loopy stuff. It still made a talking point. Still gave us something to talk about.
So for some reason, that group still laughs at me for the abortion debate that I had with Ham, where I said men don't get a decision on whether an abortion occurs or not. And his response was, men can choose not to have sex. And I said, wait, so not having sex is the equivalent of an abortion? And they both bust out laughing as if I was the person who made a ridiculous claim. And I'm like, that was his claim. I said men don't get a choice in abortion, and he said they can choose not to have sex. So I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me that choosing not to have sex is the equivalent of a woman getting a baby dismembered and sucked out of her uterus. You made that comparison, Ham. You did, and that's everybody in that group still laughs at me as if I'm like, what? I live in clown world.
So you gotta learn to speak clownese to the people.
Yeah, the more I look around, the more everybody is a hypocrite. The more everybody is irrational, and it makes me wonder. Well, first of all, is it even worth? Like, what's the point of this channel? I come on here and I spend 3 hours, 4 hours a week talking about things nobody cares to hear or listen, except for maybe Brandon and Sparky showing up every once in a while. I spend too much time on Twitter, talking to people and interacting with people, only for them to think I'm some crazy stalker. So my perception of what I'm doing and the good that I can provide other people is not the same as what other people think I can provide for them. So what's the purpose? Am I wasting my time? And am I Dunning-Kruger thinking that I have something worthwhile to say and opinions that are worth hearing, when in reality, I'm just an idiot? That seems to be, given other people's reactions to me, I'm a creepy weirdo who doesn't understand anything. And at some point, it can't be they're all wrong about me. It's got to be me. I'm the common denominator here, right? There's the people who criticize Taylor Swift and say, okay, if every song is about a bad relationship and stupid decisions and how the bad breakups, at some point it's not them, it's you, right? It's the same kind of thing. It's like, well, if everybody you meet on it online, if everybody you talk to that you thought you had decent relationships with, or at least familiar with, and then the second you say one thing, they turn on you and act as if you're a completely different person than what you thought you presented yourself as. At some point, yeah, you are the creepy stalker weirdo. And this is something I don't know if you've watched You on Netflix. Something I recommended. There are a lot of things about that character that is like, okay, that makes sense. That's rational. Well, the serial killer, like yeah, I understand. He goes way overboard. I don't want to. I don't know if you have seen it or whatever. Maybe, I don't want to spoil nothing. Yeah,
it's kind of just on my eventual to watch
list. That granted. So I'm not gonna hopefully not give any spoilers, but it's because he starts off doing an inner monologue and he's talking to himself and he's rationalizing all of these things. And the whole time I'm like, okay, that actually is pretty accurate. When I go into a situation, I'm analyzing things and I'm like, okay, I observed that. That seems to be pretty accurate. And then you check you're like, okay, this seems to be my observation. Let's check it out by interacting. And oh, hey, she confirmed my observation. Yes, I had that pegged right, that sort of thing. Then he goes into creepy, like, okay. So this is all within the first 10 minutes of the show, so hopefully it shouldn't be spoilers because this is actually the preview as well. So then he goes on her Facebook page and is looking at her stuff and is like, okay, kind of borderline, like, yeah, maybe overboard, but hey, if you're interested in a girl and you know her name, you can look her up online and be like, hey, is this person? Then he goes a step further and goes and actually is standing outside of her house and is watching her and is following her around without her knowing it and trying to set up a meeting with. I'm like, okay, you had me. Like, I was like, okay, that's actually pretty. And then nope, the stalking and visiting somebody's. I've joked about that sort of thing. Okay, that's not. But there are a lot of things about his rationalizing of things that I see in my
right now.
What?
So you're very self-incriminating right now.
Self-incriminating?
Are you saying this is how you rationalize? Like you have similar rationalization to that guy? That would
yeah. That's why I'm like, holy crap! I was watching this thing, and I'm like, there are things that certain behaviors that he does of like, yeah, I do weird stuff like that, and I rationalize it to myself, but then other people are like, what the hell is wrong with this weirdo? And so the question is, like, I know I am not capable of the stuff the guy's an actual like sociopath. Am I a sociopath to that extent? Granted, I understand I have sociopathic tendencies. There are things I recognize about myself, my inability to empathize. That's a sociopathic tendency. But is it to the point where now it's not to the point where I'd ever go out and like stalk somebody or beat somebody over the head or.
Oh, good. Yeah. Please don't do that. And again, you're still self-incriminating. Let's tone it down a bit.
Self-incriminating? I'm not sure what you mean.
Self-incriminating. You're stating things that most definitely can be taken out of context on a live stream. Sociopathic tendencies, fine, there's people out there with that.
Yeah.
don't compare.
Actually, most people who are CEOs have sociopathic tendencies.
You should not be comparing yourself at all to a stalker in a movie and saying there are some things that make sense. That's self-incriminating. You are associating yourself with actual creep weirdo and saying
but
could be similar.
That's why I'm questioning myself. Is like, yeah, am I creep weirdo? Is that what other people see me as? Do they look at me and see, oh yeah, the guy from that show who is an obsessive stalker who watches people through their bedroom windows? Is that what people think about me? That's not what I've done.
Honestly, you just come across again as very dogmatic. You have your pointed views based off of your internal head logic of you and your kind of your own personal echo chamber talking to yourself to rationalize. And while that is good to rationalize, if you have nothing to compare with the rest of society to see, is this actually a legit rationalization? Then you don't know.
No, I don't know, and that's what I'm realizing is I don't know jack about anything.
We'll just play a little therapy session. On the one hand, you are wanting to find the truth. You brought up,
but I'm bad at it.
You brought up your comparison, saying maybe I don't know how to empathize or, kind of try and put myself in other shoes and perspectives and legitimize that viewpoint just for an alternate talking point. Maybe you have trouble seeing that because your logic is solid in this area. You brought that up in the earlier conversation, and then, just a couple of minutes ago, you started saying, yeah, maybe that actually is the case. Maybe I am too dogmatic. So just us conversing, you are kind of saying maybe my self-realization is not real world realization or other people's view on what I think I am portraying myself as.
So yeah, but at some point, if everybody gets the same impression of who I am.
But that's like saying, okay, the first step to fixing being an alcoholic is acknowledging you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So if you
I have a problem in that everybody thinks I am this creepy stalker weirdo online.
If you're at the point where you can say maybe there is,
maybe that's what I am.
But can it be fixed? That part's up to you.
It can be fixed by me just going offline. That's what I'm contemplating at the moment. Is all of this is pointless. Everybody sees me as somebody who I am not, and that's never going to change. And mostly it's because I am bad at understanding other people.
Okay, so if you're bad at understanding other people, is the way to fix it to disassociate yourself with other people? No.
No, because everything I've done to try to fix this has not done anything. It's actually made the situation worse.
For maybe those group of people, just find some other new people to talk to. But if you don't associate with other people to get feedback from other people and then try and apply and say, maybe I said something wrong in that conversation, did something wrong. Maybe that's why they're kind of getting a little PO'd at me. If you don't have that feedback, then you're on your own, you're isolated, and your internal logic is now completely encapsulated just in your head. And to you, everything might make sense. And I think you're on the right track and searching for truth and stuff, but you still need to vocalize it.
So what I'm thinking currently is I'm just going to shut down the YouTube channel, close the Twitter account, and just interact with people in the Jehovah's Witnesses and just be a cult member like what everybody else thinks I am. Right? Just only interact with people who are Jehovah's Witnesses and nobody else outside of that. And then go around and tell people about Jehovah and his kingdom on weekends and pass out flyers and just drop all the rest of this stuff. And if everybody else is telling me I'm a creepy stalker cult member, well, why bother trying to change their perceptions? Because if I don't see myself as that same person,
you're trying to improve yourself. That should be the goal. Screw their perceptions. I'm saying people provide value.
At some point, their perceptions have to be taken as valid perceptions.
And
if I'm the only person who disagrees with their perceptions, the problem isn't them, it's me. It's not rational to think that everybody else gets it wrong and I'm the only person who gets it right. It's not rational.
Oh, this is all hypothetical, theoretical. Neither of us is a therapist or a,
if every person you meet is the asshole, it's not them, it's you. If every person you meet is an idiot, it's not them, it's you.
So what you have stated is, if you are the asshole because everyone else you viewed as the asshole, now you're starting to realize maybe it is me. Well, my only recourse is to disassociate from anybody else and go join a group of assholes. I'm not saying Jehovah's Witnesses are assholes. I'm just saying you're trying to retreat to a smaller group, some sort of safe.
Yeah, because at least though that group of people would be like, okay, this is where I belong. Why not?
Is that better than working on attributes you feel need to be improved upon?
What's there to work on? I can't change other people's perceptions of me.
You can work on your ability to empathize. The goal isn't to change other people's perceptions. It is to
no, because if everybody says something about me, and I've been doing this for 2 years, and everybody comes away at the same conclusion, yeah, that's who I am, apparently.
But can you work on your personality, and due to your betterment of your personality and the way that
I don't know. After 33, you'd think if I could have fixed it, it would have been fixed by now. Right? How much of a change can somebody go through at this stage in life?
Plenty. You can change any time in life. It's a decision. It's a goal. Decide you want to change, do something to take action on it.
Now, there's certain fundamental things about yourself that you can't change.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, height, sure. Physicalities. I can't make myself taller. I can't naturally change.
No, there's been people have talked about this. Like Steven Crowder has talked about, like, yeah, no matter what, he was going to be doing what he does because that's what. Yeah, that's and Owen Benjamin is always going to be a comedian and always going to be playing piano. There's nothing he can do to change. That's who he is as a core of his person.
But it is a part of his person that he is happy with. If there's a part that he's not happy with, I think he would do some self-improvement to try and be happier with that part of the person.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to come to a conclusion here. Is
I have to live with my flaws and not ever try and fix them.
No, it's a flaw only because I'm trying to change other people's perception of myself. If I stop caring, it's like, well, I'm not ever going to change anybody's perception of myself. Okay, then I'll just be what I am. And this is not the place for me. Online is not the place for me. On Twitter is not the place for me.
Okay. I mean,
everything. Yeah. So I am.
If you want to quit that
trying to be an outgoing person. I'm trying to be, and that's not me.
Isolating yourself and becoming some sort of cultist and Jehovah's Witness door to door. That's an odd comment. That's fine if you want to believe in Jehovah's Witness and that's your brand of Christianity.
Well, people consider Jehovah's Witnesses to be a cult that isolate themselves from everyone else who's not a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, you pretty much made that statement.
Yeah, so what?
Is that where you want to be?
Why not?
I'm not asking why not. I'm just asking if that's where you want to be.
Well, it's better than dealing with all of the people I meet online and all the people I talk to. Is like, well, the people who should be agreeing with me and who should be like at least people I can relate to and talk to, if I go online and I talk to those people and they treat me like some creepy stalker and like a loser who has nothing worth listening to, then I guess I'm the loser who says nothing that's worth listening to. Why should I bother putting all this effort and trying to change any of that? Why not just go with people?
I like listening to you. I think we have some eventful and productive discussions. Now, we don't necessarily need to do a live stream on YouTube if you want to talk. So if you want to,
yeah, that's what like. I'm not talking about distancing myself from family and stuff like that.
I'm saying I am a person that does find your input interesting, and we don't agree on everything. We do agree on a lot, but even tonight we've had our disagreements.
Yeah, but the part of that is if I stop doing this channel, that's going to be I have no reason to keep doing politics and keep following along with events as they occur.
Just I don't to be interested in. I don't know. I don't even do a stream other than yours, but I still follow along because things have gotten kind of we're now in Oz. Not in Kansas anymore.
But if yeah, No, but I was like, half of the reason I stay up to date on this sort of thing is because I'm like, okay, I've got to comment on this, and maybe my opinion is worth hearing. But if my opinion isn't worth hearing, then why keep up with the stuff?
I don't know. Again, you're kind of doing an internal self-rationalization, but
I mean,
I think it's good in some areas, but I also think having some additional outside input, not a bad thing. Don't take things super personally. Just say, do I have areas where I'm weak? Are these people pointing out something that I do need to work on? Maybe I should. Maybe I want to be better in this area. I don't know. I mean,
that's the thing is, if I could have fixed it, I would have fixed it.
No.
Because it's something I've known about for years, and I've said for years, this is what I'm trying to improve. And I watched myself. So I went back to so part of the 2 cents thing, I went back and watched a stream I did with last October of 2017, yeah, 2017, that I did with Loudmouth. And I'm saying the exact same freaking things that I'm saying now. And I'm like, dude, I didn't learn anything in a year and a half. I didn't change anything. Nothing is, I mean, exact same boat, making the exact same type of comments about a new person, but it's the exact same situation. I haven't changed one bit. And that's something I said, oh, I'm going to try to improve that. I'm trying to improve that. I'm trying to, oh yeah, I need to stop, putting so much faith in these other people and start scrutinizing what they're telling me. And then I'm like, that's exactly the same comments I was making about my 2 cents. I'm like, yeah, I need to scrutinize people better. And apparently I didn't do jack of that in the past year and a half. I haven't changed one bit. I haven't made one bit of improvement in that front. I haven't made one bit of improvement in empathizing with anybody. And yet that's been the core goal of behind the moniker HUMANE Mind, is to trying to reach people at their level, trying to empathize with people. And over the past 2 years or so that I've been doing this, I've only become more obsessed with being logical and rational. So here's another thing: is I took the personality test, the INTJ or whatever it is. What's the name of that thing?
Oh yeah,
Myers-Briggs. I took that personality test a couple of years ago, and then as part of my training for the job, they asked me to take it again. Just to. I was 100% on the logical aspect this time, and 0% on the empathetic side, or whatever the percentage scales. Like the previous one was something in like the 80%. The first time I had taken it. After 2 years of doing this,
yeah, I think you become more cynical.
I've become more cynical and more like, nope, not, don't care about your feelings, don't care about this. I've become the exact opposite of what I intended out to do as far as being able to relate to other people. So, seems like nobody outside of you and me cares what I have to say or what my opinions are. So, why broadcast them?
Mm-hmm. Just for fun. I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah,
I'm saying you can work on your cynicism, and you still can work on being more empathetic. It'll be tough. It's out of your comfort zone. But if that's something you want to pursue and be better in that aspect of your life, it is doable. It's not just to throw your hands up. It is who I am. I am who I am. Call me Scrooge. People can change whenever. It's just,
yeah, but
what are you focusing on that you do?
I have been unable to. So
it depends on your goals.
I have failed every goal that I've set out to have with this channel, with my Twitter, with everything. So I failed at everything.
Then just pick 1 or 2 goals that you want to work on and just work on that. Don't set too many goals. Make things easier for yourself.
No, I mean, I only had a few goals, and I didn't meet a single one of them. And I keep setting the same goals and not meeting them.
Smaller
goals.
Logically, just set smaller goals. Set smaller and smaller goals until you can finally start meeting something. Maybe you're just trying to take too big of steps or too large of goals, and they seem feasible, but ultimately the steps in between were a bit overwhelming. I don't know. But if you constantly, put yourself down because you haven't reached any of these goals, just set more. As soon as you stop setting goals ever, you're done. What's the point? Life is about growing, progressing, doing something. You don't want to be stagnant, so just find some smaller goals, something else to work for. You got a new job in Connecticut, make that one of your goals is to be awesome. Show what kind of work you can put into it, what you can output, and wow, that guy's smart. Make that one of your main goals and just focus on that for the next year or so.
Yeah.
Just pick something that's feasible and, smaller and measurable. But don't just not have any goals and say, I can't seem to meet any goals. Then you're dead in the water. You're just stagnant. And that just that's a lot harder to break out the longer you're stagnant, because your mindset becomes stagnant. So, I mean, that's up to you if you want to keep doing the streams and stuff. I'm just saying, don't put yourself down. Yeah, maybe you are lacking empathy, and that's why you're having trouble conversing with other people online or social media. Why they think you're kind of creepy is because you're just direct, kind of bullet point like a robot, and it comes across as, not relatable. Maybe that's what's going on, but doesn't mean it's not fixable.
Yeah, I don't know where to begin fixing that.
But maybe take a break, come back later, pick it up some point later about a different subject. Doesn't even have to be politics. It's something else, if that's what you want. I don't know. I mean, go to Jehovah's Witness Church, make some friends over there. They're not bad people.
I mean, I was planning on doing that anyway, but I'm just saying, like, well, maybe I should just.
One of your goals, make some friends in the.
No, I mean, it's like, yeah, maybe all of this is just.
Well, this is just
pointless egotism, and just me thinking I am better than I am, and maybe I should just be content. Like, yeah, you're not. There's nothing special about you. You're just, barely above average, and that's.
Hey, that's still above average. Most people, there's nothing special. I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not going to go out and make multi-million-dollar movies and wind up with a wife. I'm not ever going to do that kind of stuff. But what you want out of life, what makes you happy, pursue that, while still every day thinking, am I better than I was yesterday? Kind of that whole Jordan Peterson mentality.
Yeah.
It's a good way to view life.
But what would that involve? That's the thing. Well, I don't know.
So
if I cut the social media stuff, I don't know what else to pursue.
A career.
What?
You're pursuing a career.
That's not a personality. That's not that's a way to make ends meet. That's not a destination.
Okay. Then use that as a good time filler to build your technical skills, get a good job, make some money. But yeah, then join a church and make a goal to make some friends. People who go out and just talk about stuff. Maybe they won't be talking about politics, but you could just about whatever. Like that conversation we had a couple weeks ago. Wonder why would you bother talking to people at work about stuff you don't care about? Maybe you'll learn why. There's no point in the fact of associating. That's it. I don't care about baseball, but if they're just standing around and chilling, I don't mind.
No, I still don't get the point of that.
Well, that's why. That's called being empathetic. That's called associating in human interaction. That's not a logic thing. It's just a enjoying the presence of others that you would appreciate as coworkers or friends.
Yeah, but why if they're talking about stuff that's
just incorrect? Why not? It's just taking time to be around people.
Yeah, I get that, but why not just be around people who share similar interests?
Well, then do that.
Well, either way, there is a disconnect between my perception of myself and reality. And I need to figure that out and sort myself out and clean my room.
Yeah.
No, I mean literally clean my room. I'm still have boxes everywhere and
unpacking.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's up to you if you want to do any further streams. I'm still down for it if I'm available. Not, don't have the kiddos or something going on, but
yeah. So there may not be another stream next week. I'm 78 weeks wasted.
I don't think they were wasted.
No, I think they're wasted.
Well, find a new hobby.
Yeah.
But yeah,
all right.
Keep yourself down.
Catch you later.
Self-improvement. So.